Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hanson, joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hey, Hanson.
And then we got Dan Tackalism himself over here.
I'm very glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. And you're wearing your finest wardrobe.
This is not my finest, but it's...
What is your finest?
I'll have to wear it next time.
Oh, I'm guessing stripes.
Oh, I told you, I'll wear it next time.
Just in case you weren't following the Twitter news, the person that we shipped out your dumb blueberry jacket to received it, Mr. Eric Peterson in Florida, I believe, and he took a great picture.
I saw
so
it.
funny.
He also made some really horrible accusations in that
He did something very funny where he took a picture of this note in the pocket of Dan's jacket, and he pulled it out, and it said, by the way, I really wanted to give Battleborn a 9.5. It was rejected here at GI. I think it's better than Overwatch. It's this handwritten apology from Dan Tack that he made up.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. We're also joined by one Adam Biessener. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks.
If you don't recognize that voice or recognize that handsome face, Adam was at GI for 3 million years?
Roughly.
Okay.
No, it was actually, amusingly enough, it was almost 10 years to the day. It was very close. It was 2 days off.
It was all planned. And so then you left GI in September of 2013.
That's right.
And you went over to Stardock.
Correct.
Doing what?
I initially went over to, it was kind of a weird split role where I was doing kind of some of this, right? Doing podcasts and video podcasts and stuff like that, and gameplay videos. And I was also doing, the title was brand manager, so I was doing a lot of marketing direction and marketing materials and stuff like that. And then also doing internal reviews of the games, right? Lying, yes. Well, we all know about that. So I did that for, I don't know, about a year and a half or so. And then I got the chance to jump over more directly onto the dev side. And so that's what I've been doing, is working on content development for Ashes of Singularity, which is our big, sci-fi RTS thing.
Yeah.
For about just over the last year.
Awesome. We are going to dive into all that. But it's nice to have you back. And we have you back to take a stroll down memory lane with World of Warcraft. Because on this episode, we're going to be talking about Legion, the new expansion that came out on Tuesday that Dan Tack has poop-socked his way through, I believe.
Correct. It took me approximately 19 to 20 hours to get to level 110.
Nice. Was it worth it?
About straight. Yeah. Now the real work begins.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll talk about all that stuff. Kyle has some cool Nintendo news. We're going to touch a little bit on Obduction from the creators of Myst. Came out on Tuesday. It's an interesting game. Dan,
That got announced a week ago.
No.
Didn't it? No?
No. It was at E3.
First crossed my feed a week ago.
It was completely under the radar for me too. At E3, I was in Indiecade, and I walked up and I was like, what is this game? This looks awesome. It's like a live action hologram man. And it's from the creators of Myst. It's like, oh. And for some reason, it was disappointing. I love Myst, but still, it's I was hoping it was just something completely out of left field and new instead of spiritual successor to Myst. But we have some opinions on that. We'll get to that. Kyle, you want to talk about Attack on Titan?
Sure.
Okay, there's some other things here and there that we can touch on. Then we're going to get to some community emails. Then after that, there's a developer interview with Mark Pacini, who might not be a household name, but he should be, god damn it, because the man directed Metroid Prime.
All right.
Yeah.
Possibly my favorite game of the PS2 generation.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, no exaggeration. I love the first Metroid Prime
Shadow of the
game.
Colossus also came out on that generation.
Metroid Prime.
And so did Metal Gear Solid 2.
Metroid Prime.
A lot of good stuff.
I could list more games.
Metal Gear
High quality
Solid?
entertainment.
Hey, I love me some Metal Gear Solid 2.
Oh my god.
Hanson will
Anyways,
stand with me on that, right?
Metal Gear Solid 2 is one of my favorites for
There
sure.
we go. Thank you.
At some point, we'll do we did a Nintendo 64 Spectacular where we ranked our five favorite games, and at some point I want to do the PlayStation 2 Spectacular. I think that's going to be up next.
Metal Gear Solid 2 wasn't that the one that was 15 minutes long?
Are you
You're
thinking
thinking of Ground Zeroes?
Are you thinking of Gungrave?
No, Gungrave. I remember Gungrave.
Wow, I'm
actually.
impressed.
Wait, is that a joke about only
Yeah, what are you
Solid
talking
Snake
about?
section from Metal Gear Solid 2?
No, that was one of the knocks on Metal Gear Solid 2 was that it was short, wasn't it?
No, that game's
It's decently long.
Yeah.
All right, fair
There's
enough.
a lot of
Now,
knocks
to be
on
fair,
it.
I'm a total MGS hater, so.
That's right. And you've
Wait,
been out of
this
the game
changes
for a while.
everything.
Anyways, you jackasses. Mark Pacini, tail end of the show, we talk about designing Metroid Prime. The balance between East and Western philosophy that created that game, which I'm endlessly fascinated by. He went on to found Armature, which is a studio they made Arkham Origins Blackgate. They've been starting and stopping on a couple projects, but now they are making ReCore, which is coming out in early September with Microsoft. So we talk about that collaboration. We also talk about one time when he really offended Miyamoto early on in Metroid Prime's development, which is a good story. A lot of stuff just about workflow and how to maintain team morale, because Armature had a couple, I don't know, growing pains as it started out. A couple projects started and stopped that we kind of talk and dance around. But according to Polygon, they wrote a story years ago about how one of those projects was codenamed Maverick Hunter, and it was a Mega Man first-person shooter game. Where it was kind of like, hey, you know what you did for Metroid Prime? We're Capcom. You should do that for Mega Man. Make them gritty and first person. So we don't acknowledge it, but when you're listening to the conversation later on, you can kind of hear how he's loosely referencing that kind of stuff. But it's a really good chat. I recommend people check it out if you're a fan of Metroid or want to know more about ReCore. Hey, but for now, Adam, you've been gone since September 2013.
I have.
We've been dying to know, what did you think of Puppeteer?
I have like a vague sense that that's a thing that maybe existed, but I could not tell you a single thing.
Yeah, let's remove a couple words from that question and ask Adam, what is Puppeteer?
I was just trying to think of the dumbest game for 2013 that no one would remember.
Is this some like Double Fine nonsense?
No,
I just assume it's
it was
some
a
kind of Double
Sony
Fine
thing.
That
nonsense.
was like the only game former news editor Jim Riley was excited about because there was a hamburger in the trailer.
Oh boy. Now we're going back to the olden days.
Wow.
There's a throwback episode. But this episode is a little bit of a spiritual successor to Respec Radio, that old MMO podcast we have that Adam was on all the time.
That basically was my podcast.
Yeah, your little baby.
Me and Pete Kohler.
Oh, really?
And with a healthy dose of Andy Mack, yeah.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah, we basically was just like, this is what we're doing in WoW this week.
Well, let's do that again. Except with Dan being the with Legion.
I'm
Excellent.
a big fan of Dirt to Dur.
What do you think of Legion so far, Dan?
Again, with the caveat that we're still very early. I haven't really had a chance to do raids or mythic dungeons, which are the new draw. I'd say mythic dungeons more so than raids for your average player, because we've been moving off of the raid continuously for years and years as like
Since
the be all
it
end all.
existed.
Yeah.
Wait, really? Why is that?
Oh God! Well, because WoW is for babies now, as opposed to when it was an actual game with like content that you had to like play and beat. In order to like level your character and get epics, and later legendaries and actually increase your power. Now I pretty much you just log in, you hit a button, and they give you everything, and you get a little parade of like ponies and pandas and rainbows shoot out.
It's a clicker game, right?
I'm pretty sure that's the deal now, right?
WoW has become more accessible over the years.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Blizzard.
As an old school MMO player, I would say to its detriment, certainly originally. But I think the pendulum has swung back a little bit. I would certainly, even me saying that I would like it to go back to that hardcore thing would probably be false, because at this day, it's been 12 years. I don't really like the same things as I did. I like a hardcore gaming experience, but I can't say that I'd like to organize 40 people to raid 4 hours a night, 6 hours a night to tackle the next challenge. I don't know if I could do that anymore.
So how are they swinging back in that direction a little bit then?
You have basically what they've started to do is just create more options. So if you're hardcore, you can do the raids on, mythic difficulty. There's like 4 different difficulties now, so you can go in there and select your sandwich. Like you can have the Happy Meal if you're a casual player, or you can have, the giant tray of meat if you are a hardcore raider.
Just raw animal meat.
They're like the same dungeons, but the experiences are tuned up, and have harder mechanics if you want the old school. Everybody, if you mess this up, you're kicked out of the guild and you get no DKP, that kind of thing.
I remember DKP very well.
Me too. And see, they've streamlined that process as well. So a lot of the stuff for accessibility, I agree. It did dumb the game down for years. I was like, okay, I can go play something else. But at this point, I like it how the fact it caters to all types. I agree. Maybe it certainly at the onset of this stuff swung way too hard in the you're rewarded for being alive category.
Participation trophies everywhere.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Forget that. I'm not all about that. But they're still there to some extent. But you'll never have like the craziest awesome stuff.
So here's my question. Now I've been way plugged out of WoW for a long time. Actually, we were at lunch earlier, and Miller asked me what I thought about Legion. I was like, oh, I haven't played Legion. He's like, oh, well, how far did you get in whatever the last one was?
Warlords of Draenor. Yeah.
Right. I was like, oh yeah, there was another one, wasn't there? Because I literally, that's how unplugged I've been.
Why did you trail off?
What?
Why don't you stay with it?
Oh, well, for one thing, my daughter was born. And
another Kyle Hilliard over here. Okay.
No, I mean, it's a lot of it was just that kind of I've just been there. I just done that. And I had a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun in my 4.5 years or whatever it was that I played WoW. I kicked out. I burnt out after about the first content patch in Cataclysm. something like that. I poop sock through up to 80 or 85 or whatever. Cataclysm was 85.
Yeah, I hated Cataclysm, so
See, the 5-mans are great. The heroics are great, especially early on because they nerfed the hell out of them to the point where they were just.
Well, that's where they added mythic. They made heroics are the new normal.
Okay.
Right?
And then there's like casual mode and
right.
Fair enough. So no, but I really enjoyed that. But so my larger, I guess, issue though is that everything. So these games exist on kind of a continuum between the sort of Raph Koster, and I'm totally dating myself with that name, but the sort of the world side of being a world simulator. Like Star Wars Galaxies was very much a world simulator, right? And like,
just code for boring classes.
It was a game.
But I mean, the people who were into it, and you could make your own towns and all this kind of stuff, right? And that was like his whole thing. And he's done a ton of writing on game design. It's super interesting. You should read him. But anyway, they exist on a continuum from that all the way over to and then you have like EverQuest and some of these other games, and then eventually you get to WoW, and that's swung so far over at that point. By the time Cataclysm came around, and Lich King was even pretty hardcore about this, has swung so far into being a game and being to be mean about it, a bunch of pixely, cartoony graphics over a naked Skinner box, where you hit the button and you get the sugar drip, right? The Skinner's psychology experiment.
We got it.
Yeah, he's my BF.
All right. Anyway.
Oh, that's good.
But
write that
so
down.
there's a continuum there, right, between the sort of experiential side and the sort of mechanical side, right? And WoW had swung so far over to that, and that's what I was just like, I'm not getting any of this like cool, I'm in a world sense anymore.
But isn't that
with all the flight points and instantaneous teleport everywhere and teleporting to dungeons and the group finder and all that stuff, which are great conveniences and save you a ton of time. But in the quest to remove downtime entirely from the game, they've also removed something. There's a certain je ne sais quoi. Right?
Isn't that how you survive? Isn't that the reason we're still talking about it, not talking about, EverQuest 2, and that was hardcore as hell? Like, there's a reason that we're still talking about WoW 12 years later.
Well, I mean, clearly a ton of people rather enjoy it. I mean, and like I said, I had a great time with it.
Yeah.
You asked me why I petered off, and that's the sort of rambling philosophical answer of why I petered off outside of I had a kid.
Well, Dantek, this is your chance. I want you, as one PC editor, the successor to Adam to another, I want you to pitch Legion. What's cool about this that's worth coming back to?
Well, the artifact weapons are like one of the major, from a marketing standpoint, draws. I'm just trying to go over the major new mechanics.
Yeah, sure.
So you get weapons. They did a great job in tying your character back into the world through these artifact weapons, through the quest that you get them, and building up your class hall, which is just basically, it's sort of a lot like a garrison from the last expansion, but a little more flavorful. I was surprised at how much they are the same, but again, it's done so a little bit better. So whatever class you pick and spec you pick, you're going to go get your weapon. This could be, actually Doomhammer, or actually Ashbringer, or actually, the Blades of Frostmourne, which is what I'm using. So you go on
they
a
all
quest.
Labeled actually?
Actually.
Okay.
Actually,
This is actually that weapon.
Right. So you go on a quest to go get these. You'll talk to a lot of old characters from old school Warcraft lore. They're really taking a big push with this expansion to get, Sylvanas and Illidan and all these old school characters. We want to make sure that these are the faces and not these, who's this guy? Who's this random troll?
Wait, but they've been in the game before, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But they are forefront. You're interacting with them. You're doing quests for them. You're doing quests with them. And those minor guys that may have been players in other expansions, they are now actually working for you because you're now the big ass champion. And instead of getting a garrison, as in Warlords of Draenor, where you had 20 meaningless little minions to send out with the Skinner box mobile game model, essentially.
Right.
Now you only have 5, and they're all hardcore, and they can come with you, and they make a difference in the world. They're like people like Rexar and other characters that are maybe not Sylvanas tier, but you're like, yeah, I recognize those from Warcraft.
Yeah.
So artifact weapons are super cool. Instead of getting weapon drops and stuff and upgrading them, it's basically a new talent tree on top, which isn't that exciting, if you think about it. But it basically creates a system of alternate advancement. So after 110, you're still always building up your weapons and specs after that. So, alternate advancement is a common form of keeping people interested after, and that keeps going. Like having just hit 110, the new zone that I'm in, instead of offering, experience and rewards like that crap, I get more artifact power. So I'm on that tier, going to the next tier of heroic dungeons, and then eventually mythic dungeons and raids. So that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of what are some of the major stuff that have come in?
I know you didn't sleep for the last couple nights because you've been trying to blast through this stuff.
I was, and I enjoyed myself. I tried to take my time. The zones, Some of them felt really good, and others, I like the worst quest chain in the world was in Stormheim. I was like, does this ever end? It keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going.
Does it just feel like new content to devour? Is anything exciting, or is this like, I love WoW, and now I'm just going to chew through this stuff and move on?
That's a great thing. I've become increasingly, over the years, it's like, why do we even have leveling anymore? Because it's just something you have to do to get to the game, essentially, at this point. And I get they've interwoven storyline quests in that, and that's super cool. But when I'm collecting pots for a Tauren or something like that, it's just like, okay, you know what? I could do without this. This Tauren really doesn't need his pot or his drum from across the lake. Okay, I can live without doing that, especially since I'm purportedly someone who has slain Ragnaros, millions of legendary dragons, and then I'm level 110, and I can just, kill Ragnaros with a single blow.
It's like Obama finding my shoes in the morning for me? Okay.
I get it. I also understand the leveling process doesn't take too long. They haven't made it intrusive anymore. It's not like, old school leveling. You can punch it out in a week, even as a casual player, probably at this point. So it's not a huge detriment, and it does set up, the story beats. They've got it like, you do this zone. You don't quest like you used to, where it's just like, all right, I'll go here, here, and here. Now it's like, I'm in this zone, I'm going to finish the whole thing.
I mean, that's been that way.
Story chain.
That's been that way since Cataclysm.
Yeah,
really.
It has. But now it's like, you kind of have to. Now it's like, if I'm going to the zone, I may as well do the whole thing to get the cutscene to see the story and a piece of endgame gear. That's the reward for doing like everything, doing the whole story thing.
I got my lore master achievements. I know about doing everything.
And it's okay. Here's something new. You can do the zones. You're probably going to do them, but you can do them in any order in this because they're now scaling, which is a super cool new thing. So you can do the expansion content in any order. It will scale with your character. So I'm in a zone. I'm level 107. You're in a zone. You're level 101. We're both hitting the same mob, but it's equal level to both of us as we hit it.
And that's new for this time around?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Do any other MMOs do that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Probably.
I mean, scaling is something that happens all over the place. I think ESO does something so much similar, although it might not be really for mixed content like that.
I know that there's scaling in other games, like you can group and then it puts you in an instance where everything's tailored to all those characters. But this is a little different since they're overworld, but not really, because now all overworlds are phased in WoW. So it's just like but at the same time, yes, we are theoretically. If I group with my friend, we do a dungeon. He's 103 and I'm 107. The mob will con 103 to him and 107 to me, and it all evens out on this weird scaling scale.
Which is
pretty cool.
I like. I mean, it's a fascinating piece of tech, right? It's super interesting from that regard. But it also, like, again, it's just sanding off every non-optimized, perfect, interesting thing about the world and about the game to make it this perfectly smooth little roller coaster ride that has just been machined into something just.
No, I mean
ultimately kind of bland. Like where are the sons of Sons of Argal? Well, was it Worgen, the dude in Silverpine who would come and murder you? He was like the first thing undead players found.
Yeah, he was super cool
in the original like vanilla.
That dungeon is still cool. I mean, they took him out of the dungeon. There's like some guy that shoots a gun now, and that was many years ago. I recall, he's cool. I think canonically he got moved and we kill him somewhere else.
Sure. But that was cool. And the Fell Reaver in
there's still the equivalent.
Outland,
there's still equivalent of Fell. There's giant Ettins, which are now the Fell Reaver, where it's like, oh. But is that fun? I hate that. It's super annoying.
Where your questing, it's memorable. Like, is that the twist?
It's good to happen to you once. If they could design it somehow so psychologically you only get killed by the giant roamer once, that's fine. But when you go in res and then you're like starting to pull a little crappy guy and then it's like, oh, there he is again. It's not cool. It's like, okay, well, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Well, in your mind, Dan, what was the peak excitement for WoW? When were you most into it?
Burning Crusade. I know most people will say Wrath of the Lich King, but Burning Crusade was top for me.
Why is that?
I was just playing. Those raids were absurd.
Those raids were hard.
They were extremely difficult. I was with an extremely hardcore play group. I was playing a lot.
Role-playing servers.
I didn't get past T5 in Outland. Like, they were rough.
Yeah, they were extremely. You needed an extremely coordinated group that was going to be around every single night in order to progress.
Yeah, I mean, we eventually got through like Karazhan. I don't think we even. I don't think we beat Zulaman. Put it that way.
Oh yeah. Okay. See, that's I loved Karazhan. Basically,
Karazhan's the best dungeon they ever made.
I agree.
It probably will continue to always forever.
And it's back in this expansion as a mythic 5-man.
There we go, Adam. Now you're in. Look at this.
It's not the
Go
same,
back to that baby game.
It will be. It will. Hey, if they can make every time I talk to him, I always bring up every time I talk to Blizzard and specifically Jeff Kaplan, I always bring up Karazhan. Okay, because this is like one of his dungeons, right? And he tells me about the stuff that never made it in. Like there was supposed to be that whole underground crypt area was supposed to be another wing of that raid. And again, after you kill Prince Makazar or whatever at the top, there was supposed to be like a dimensional gateway that would open that would take you to yet another section of the raid, but they never made it in the game.
So what made the dungeon so good then? What did it do that no one else did?
It was just a incredibly great mix of lore and atmosphere. And this is a game, you talk about the graphics. Yeah, they're dated, but it could still make you feel like you were in this amazing haunted castle kind of thing.
No, it was great. I mean, it was very fundamental to the Warcraft lore in the first place, which I know, Warcraft lore, LOL, whatever. But like, it's not nearly as bad as everybody likes to have you believe on the internet.
It's pretty bad.
It's portions of it are terrible. Don't get me wrong. But it's always evoked. Blizzard's always been very good at evoking a feeling, right, and evoking a sense of.
You do realize we did like interdimensional time travel in Warlords of Draenor.
Is disgust a feeling?
Okay, I'm not talking about whatever baby WoW is going on now. I'm talking about classic Warcraft, spamming water elementals. Mm-hmm. And
demons, okay.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, no. So but it was very rich in terms of like it had a lot of detail to and like a lot of environmental detail within the thing itself. Like even though they were really good at, there's one of the first encounters is the banquet. Mm-hmm. Right, and the banquet is like you get these randomized bosses. There's like 4 randomized bosses. I think it was 4. It's been a long time.
It's 4 with there's 4 little guys
Moros.
plus Moros.
Yeah. Okay, so you have that, and it's like there were little bits of chatter between those characters when you're like setting up for the poll that like added a little flavor and a little texture to the dungeon, and it's a tiny little dumb thing.
To add on, for sure. Like to bring up that add on to that actually, like the encounters in that dungeon were so interesting in comparison to a lot of encounters. It wasn't just like, okay, we pull this thing, we stay out of the poop, or we stand in the poop. Those are all. I mean, you can break down almost every fight into something like that. But Karazhan had like all kinds of crazy stuff, like the Opera House. Every week you went, you didn't know which encounter you were going to get. If it's Romeo and Juliet, you have to kill them both at the same time.
What?
We had Wolf for like 3 months running.
Yeah, you can get the big bad wolf where it chases down and kills random party members.
These are like Warcraft versions of those stories?
Oh, yeah.
This was incredible.
Totally ridiculous.
It was an opera house. Is World of Warcraft cool, you guys? This is the best pitch I've ever heard.
It was amazing.
It's the first
and that's just one of the cool encounters.
There was a chess which was really neat.
Chess
ended
event,
up being
super
free loot.
cool.
Ended up being free loot, but but was still really cool in concept, right?
You actually control chess pieces on a board against the opponent.
Wait, so like the characters play as chess pieces?
Yeah. It's like this whole like huge 30-foot tall chess pieces on this enchanted board.
And everybody in the raid gets in a piece.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
Can that just be an MMO? The chess
it is
MMO?
Awesome. And even the encounters that weren't like, crazy, like weird, like the opera or the chess were super cool. Like the Shade of Iran is one of the more popular ones because, they even made a song about it, like that became very popular and viral.
Yeah.
There's a move called Flame Wreath, okay? And if you... Right, if you move during it, right, you kill the whole raid.
Oh yeah, everybody blows up. Yeah, because like the whole fight, you're like running around, like trying not to stand in the fire, right? Because that was the thing. Right, don't stand in the fire.
And then he casts that move.
And if you move at all, like everyone blows up, hits the ceiling, blows up again, and then falls to their death.
He basically
just red light, green light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the more games can harken back,
it's very intense. It's very intense. It's
super fun.
It killed even like really good people who were like really tuned to doing all kinds of other hard raids. It's just like, oh crap, I moved. It's just like, you look on the meters and you see who did it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, man, stop that.
And
I got another thing to continue this.
Yeah.
I could just talk about cars.
Karazhan had something that is pretty much gone from raid design philosophy these days, and that's optional encounters. So you had bosses you didn't have to do. You had bosses you could do. You could go explore, or like, the veterans who had been there before could do the extra bosses. It was just so much to do in a little cool space in the middle of Deadwind Pass. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And so much trash after Curator.
Yeah, trash wasn't great in that dungeon. At least there were like trash drops, There was stuff.
Yes, man. There wasn't even like rep to grind though, because that was even before the bad days of rep grinding.
There was rep. There was reps with Violet Eye, I think is the written something. So there's a rep that you grind within Karazhan. You need a certain amount to use the blacksmith after the huntsman.
God, did it actually matter though, or did you just?
Oh, it mattered.
Okay, I don't know.
Oh, it matters.
It's too long. So we're getting pretty far into the Arcana.
No, I love this kind of crap. So do you have any sense of where Legion's at as far as community enthusiasm, reception so far compared to other expansions?
It's hard. It's so hard to say after 1.5 days or 1 day.
Sure.
1 day. Whatever. It's so hard to say right now because, again, the leveling process did not blow my mind or anything. It felt very, very similar to Warlords of Draenor leveling. However, I did enjoy the artifact leveling, getting choices to choose okay, I got some more artifact cool stuff. And they do have those, something they introduced in Warlords of Draenor, which is the rare spawns that aren't rare. But you can kill that you see them on the map, you're like, oh, there's a star. That means there's a semi-boss mob I can go kill for some extra loot. And those are all over. Like, every screen you've got one of those you can do. So it keeps that Skinner box, dopamine going. And it's like, okay, I'm doing something. You never feel bored, but it did feel very streamlined, just like Warlords of Draenor. And some of the I hate it when the quest stuff like tells you something's here, and then it's like 3 floors below or 3 floors above, and it's just like a real pain to get. Some of the zones is like that.
Yeah.
But now that I have completed all that, I'm pretty excited. So the dungeons I went through were pretty cool. I tried to not do them because no one was queuing up for them during the first days because everyone's doing they got to do the Lore Master achievement and everything like that. Right. So I'm getting into those now, gearing up. And again, a lot of this is going to hinge on whether the Mythic Dungeons and Raids are any good, as it will always, because the leveling's there, but no one's going to ever sit there like a month down the road and be like, wow, you know what? Right. That was really good. Like when I killed that wolf, and dropped a pelt.
Although I will say that when I poop socked Cataclysm, because I took like a week off of work. I just played Cat for a week, like straight. It was awesome. It was so painful waiting for my guilds at level. Like because Cataclysm it took a couple days. At least. I mean, it wasn't quite instantaneous, and not just for my guild level, but like I was tanking on my DK at the time, and like the one healer who leveled sucked. Who poop sucked it with me. Like, she sucked, and I didn't want to play with her. I was like, God, can I get somebody competent to play with, please?
See, this is why they put those looking for group tools in.
Well, and actually, LFD was actually pretty cool because in the poop sock phase, I love that we're just using that term.
It's number 7, I think.
You're only going to get grouped with other crazy hardcore players. I know.
So it was awesome. So even like in the whole battle group, you'd still actually run into the same people over and over because you're this like group of 100 people or whatever across the battle group that are just pounding through and getting all your like 251 or whatever the hell the tier was. All your gear.
Oh man, seems so far away.
I'm sure. So,
Kyle,
anyway.
I know you must be bored out of your mind. I'm sure there's a sliver of the audience that's like, I don't care about systems.
You told us to talk about it.
This is like Destiny Talk. I love it. I'm endlessly fascinated by how they can keep a game alive and the crowd enthusiastic after 12 years. And Kyle, just to stroll down memory lane with you, here I have some text. It says, having had the privilege of playing in the World of Warcraft beta for the last several months and logging several days playing in this retail version, I feel qualified to say this to all the haters and the doubters. You are wrong. Blizzard has done it again, succeeding in epic fashion to craft a title that once again makes me fear for my social life.
I was with you until the old Blizzard is. As soon as I hear X has done it again, then it's.
I mean, that had to be either me or Andy, right?
Well, this is your review, Adam, from 2004. In conclusion, some people have been afraid that WoW sacrifices its long-term appeal in favor of ease of use, much like the way certain folks think of City of Heroes. To this criticism, I say humbug. WoW offers both depth and breadth of content for players to experience, and I seriously can't imagine anyone getting bored with the game.
I remember that line. I had to eat that line, that last one. I'm like, I can't imagine anybody getting bored. Of course, a month later, it was like, Ragnaros is boring. You're all stupid. Like, and that was like the whole forums, right?
Then you listen to yourself from a podcast 12 years later, complaining about what a baby game it is. Yeah,
well, that's one of the big challenges I think that they and every other MMO developer has had is being able to keep up with content because the player will always be more voracious than they can put out every single time, which is why this expansion may be a little bit compelling. Again, we haven't had a chance to try this yet because this is for like the Mythic Plus dungeons. So this is for your hardcore 5-man group. They have like randomized traits on boss spawns now. So like Diablo style.
Sure.
Like, not exactly 1-to-1, but I'm saying like, they get like arcane empowered or whatever. So you have to deal with different things every time you go in and beat the clock. So
yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
Kyle, have you ever checked out WoW?
No, but I do want to know what a poop sock is now.
We'll explain when you're older, Kyle.
Okay, cool,
Don't worry
thanks.
about it. But just to get people back in this mindset of when this game first came out.
Please don't read any more of my old reviews.
Oh, don't worry. I'm just going to read some more of your old reviews here, Adam. I mean, that issue where we reviewed WoW also had the review for Zelda's Minish Cap.
And EverQuest.
Oh, which is it?
We're getting to?
EverQuest 2 right next to that.
EverQuest 2.
Yep.
Minish Cap, possibly the best game on the GPA. If not for Metroid Fusion.
Minish Cap is real good. I'm with you there.
I might be with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something that's
Super
better.
Good. That was GBA, not DS, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah. Also, the review for the PSP was in that issue. Had an interview with Sony's Andrew House where Reiner asked him about these so-called quoted microtransactions.
Oh yeah, those crazy ones.
Yeah, Adam's interests back then,
Oh,
by the
God.
way.
Oh
were,
no! When we had to do editor bios.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
You
finding,
knew what you were getting into when you agreed to do this, Adam.
finding new radio talk shows to disagree with. Rap
yes.
snacks. Actually finding cool people on my server. Storm Reaver for life.
There we go.
Yeah, I Storm Reaver for about 3 months.
I was about to say, you still going there? You still at Storm?
Stormy for life, man.
Commercials are one of your interests. That it's great for a brand manager. Also, the one that really put a timestamp on this best is under your interest. You list America the Book, the Daily Show's book.
That's great.
I just pulled that off my shelf actually the other day and was
Really?
reading it because
Blew
I
the
just
dust
needed something
off
to
it?
read like over breakfast or whatever. And it's so weird to see like Samantha Bee and like Stephen Colbert or correspondence.
Well, Samantha Bee has that segment
in
in that book where it's like, let me tell you how we do things in Canada. I
she
remember.
just apologizes for everything the whole time. No, it's great.
And I remember it also had the best page ever, which was pin the clothing on the Supreme Court.
Oh, that's
and just the entire
right.
Supreme Court
Yeah.
completely naked circa 2004.
Oh, man.
Okay, so 12 years on, how many more expansions does WoW have in it? What are we doing?
At least 3. You got to figure they've got the other 2 already in the on paper already planned out, if not already done for the first.
How
one.
does WoW end?
When WoW 2 comes out?
You
Yeah,
think
I mean,
that it's
so
gonna
the
happen?
crazy
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
the crazy thing is, you think about it from Blizzard's perspective, right? Like, there's so much of a sunk cost to it, and the return has got to be so high at this point.
Yeah.
Right, because and the sunk cost by which I mean like server deployments, Chinese localization. They still make a ridiculous amount of money in China.
Even though there's no skeletons in that version.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So all that stuff is already done. It's already paid for. And so I mean, man, can WoW still make a decent profit with like 1 million players?
Sure.
Almost certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to, and that's a lot of subscribers to still lose because they went down to like 12 or something. After
They're not
Cataclysm.
doing numbers anymore, but I think they were
Okay,
like
they
6.
gave up on it.
6.
Oh, that far down.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
They see that drop after like 1 month, and I mean they all went back up, and then
Right.
that's the thing. They have to keep people on the boat instead of just getting everyone to pile on.
Because every time the wave doesn't crest as high.
Right.
Right. So
I mean, how much do they want? They get people to buy that expansion. That's good enough. Just load up a truck full of money again and call it a day. I mean,
at some point they'll go free to play. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Once subscriber
I've been
numbers
saying
get
that
low
for years.
enough, and
Yeah.
at some point, who knows when, but and that'll breathe new life into it. I mean, if free to play can save Lord of the Rings online for like 4 years or whatever it was, or
Yes.
possibly longer.
It was for a long time.
It was for a long time, and I think finally, just recently, they've
sort of gone with
the
they're sort of half seas on the free to play right now, since you can get your game time with in-game currency.
Oh, right,
using
right.
sort of like the EVE Online
right.
strategy.
Yeah, you can buy the paid currency
Yes.
with gold, and then pay.
You can buy
monthly off of that.
You can sell subscriptions and buy subscriptions on the auction house, more or
Right,
less.
right.
So.
I remember reading interviews about Overwatch and whatnot, though, where they're talking about Titan, and they're like, we don't want to be just an MMO company. And it seemed like they were pulling the plug a little bit on Blizzard's involvement with MMOs. So were we really that confident that World of Warcraft 2 is going to come out?
Absolutely.
I
100 billion
Do
%.
you have any idea how much money World of Warcraft made? And still makes. I mean, come on.
Why wouldn't they
It's
just
like,
keep doing expansions?
I mean,
forever.
because
well, at some point you're going to have to blow up the engine
Right.
and redo
Yeah.
it. You're just going to have to.
I give it 2 to 3 more years, and then we'll see WoW 2.
right.
Yeah, I mean,
Not at that point. That's when WoW 2 will be announced.
Well, what do they do with WoW 2? How would you want it to go?
You're gonna have one of the challenges, as they've told me, the challenges with creating a product like that would be how do people get to carry their stuff over from
Right.
that immense legacy?
Would you expect that ability?
Yeah.
yeah, there has to be something.
Right.
No,
There has
MMO's
to be-
ever done that. It's not like
That would
EverQuest
be
1 can
so
port into EverQuest 2 or
disrespectful.
anything, right?
No, I mean they have to, but I mean you can do all kinds of stuff with cosmetic stuff and titles.
Yeah,
and,
there's ways to do
and
it.
special housing and that
Okay.
kind of stuff that isn't a huge. I mean it's a significant cost because art is expensive.
Yeah.
but it's not a huge cost, especially not to a company like Blizzard, and especially if it's not an ongoing cost. It's kind of a one-time thing, and you just approach it like, okay, this is just part of the dev that we have to do. And I mean, at some point, I think. They probably don't make WoW. WoW 2 probably doesn't look like WoW 1 very much in terms of mechanics, would be my guess. I would bet that they want to make it something
They need to
that,
make yeah.
it's not of the EverQuest lineage anymore. It's not of the UO lineage anymore.
It's of the World of Warcraft lineage.
No,
what else is there to model your MMO off
It
of?
won't be the same mechanics and functionality of this
Right.
WoW. So I mean, they have to move.
You're not going to have 6 hotbars of 12 icons of all your crap that you have to use.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
It'll be an action MMORPG as they call it.
It will almost certainly be at least a hell of a lot more of an action game. We'll say it's going to be more tabula rasa than World of Warcraft. We'll say.
Well, let's hope it's not like that. But yes.
Well, what do you do? I mean, do you continue the lore forward? Do you just nuke the lore of World of Warcraft and reboot it?
No,
you can't do that.
You do not reboot it. You keep it going.
You could keep it. I mean, there's any number of things you could do.
Well, how do you have 2 games set on the same planet?
You don't. I mean,
you don't. You said it like 1,000 years in the future or something. That's what EQ2 did, if I remember correctly. That was some
also
yes.
almost every sequel ever takes place on the same planet.
Yeah, but it's not a continuing world. Like, people are still going to play World of Warcraft 1 for a really long time.
Yeah,
It's not
well, again, that's been one of the challenges that they have to figure out how to handle when they do inevitably create WoW 2.
Yeah, it's their problem, not ours.
Truckloads of money.
Okay, so WoW 2 over World of StarCraft. No way that's happening?
I would say it is 90. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how you do a World of StarCraft.
Just say yeah.
At this point, like.
It's just not worth it. Just leave it for modders, call it a day, let Valve eventually make it. That's the way it's going to go, right?
I think Valve is primarily interested in getting 30% of every hat sold.
Yeah, it's a good business.
I think StarCraft.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great work if you can get it.
StarCraft will be back to reinvigorate some other things.
Coming to mobile soon. What do you think about? We haven't talked about StarCraft HD. That rumor that they're remaking StarCraft.
I mean, rumor. They have like the career hiring thing on their site. Like, so what is it a rumor?
Wait, but that wasn't for like HD. That was just to reinvigorate old stuff.
Yeah, okay. I'd say there's a fairly good chance of it happening.
Okay. Do you think they're doing the full campaign, or just like some multiplayer version? And is it just going to be the StarCraft 2 engine then? I mean, is it going to be?
It'll probably be StarCraft. It'll probably be the campaign and Brood War and maybe something extra. Who knows?
I don't know what you would do other. I mean, Blizzard can do whatever they want. They could, drive a bunch of money into the Pacific and it's be fine. But like,
this is our new MMO. It's a truck driving into the Pacific. F you. I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh god.
But like, I mean, why wouldn't you make basically make a StarCraft League of Legends, but keep it an RTS? Don't make not make it make it free to play. Have a reasonable pay model, which Blizzard has proven that they can do. Like their pay models for Overwatch and
Here's the Storm.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah,
Here's the Storm and Hearthstone are all pretty reasonable as far as pay models go. And being somebody who has sunk a fair amount of money, and not a ridiculous amount, but I feel like I've gotten my $60 to $100 worth out of those games. And I mean, make it multiplayer. I mean, just sink the Korean economy entirely. I mean, like,
yeah.
Why would you do anything else? It'd be so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, not easy from a technical perspective. I mean, easy in terms of they have enough money to throw at enough really smart people to make it happen in a reasonable time frame with a high likelihood of success.
Well, speaking of really smart people, I want to hear from Kyle the Brain Hilliard.
Hey.
God dang, Kyle. Nintendo had a 3DS Direct yesterday where they fully unveiled the NX. They lifted up a curtain.
No, they didn't do that.
Oh, really?
I hate to break it to you.
I have not been following the news. What did they cover in this Direct?
They announced, it was all 3DS stuff.
Okay.
They announced, let's see, the big things were Super Mario Maker for 3DS.
Okay, stop.
Okay. Hammer Time, okay.
This is good. I think everybody saw it coming.
Yeah.
I'm in shock.
Yeah, all right, Dan Tack. Is it going to be cool? Is there new features?
It looks, they didn't go into it a ton. It doesn't look like new features. It actually removes some features from the Wii U version.
And they highlighted that in their Direct.
They called it out, which
wow.
I guess I salute them for not trying to hide it, I guess. But like you can't, it seems like it will almost be more difficult to share levels online. Like they want you to be local. They want it to be like community driven so you can street pass levels.
Wait, so you can't do the little codes anymore?
I don't think so, no.
Holy
I could be
Lord.
I could be wrong about that. It wasn't totally clear.
Okay.
But otherwise, like it seems like it's structurally the same. You have all the same icons on the touchscreen and everything.
No new art styles or anything?
No, it looks like all the same stuff. I also think costumes have been removed now.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a hell of a deal.
Yeah. So, I don't know how much it connects to. It does sound like levels that you make on the Wii U can come. You can bring them over to the 3DS. So there is some connectivity there. But,
all right. So we got that. That's good.
Yep. Pikmin game for 3DS.
Hey, hell yeah!
But
here's
it's
the
not,
future of RTS, boys.
But this one's not. This one's
disagree.
not an RTS though. It's actually like a 2D adventure game.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
2D.
Yeah. So you're like instead of. You still have Pikmin and they still have their powers, but you're using them in more of like an action way, where you're like kind of using them to solve puzzles on 2D levels.
Are they giving it the Chibi Robo treatment, where it's just, hey, here's a 2D thingy?
When they first showed it, I thought they were like, "Here's our last game," and I was like, "Is this a new Chibi Robo?" Because the like ship came down and it kind of looked like Chibi Robo, but it actually does seem like an apt comparison to the Chibi Robo 3DS game.
Chibi Robo still exists?
Oh, yeah, it
Oh,
has
yeah.
lived on.
Seriously?
Big thing.
Yeah,
I
it was-
remember like a months-long running fight with Billy Berghammer, who I think predates all of you.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I didn't know
Hanson being the other old man in
Being
the room
born,
here.
yeah.
About Chibi Robo, because he was the only person in the entire office who thought it was anything other than terrible. Everybody else is just making fun of it constantly for
Jeff
being...
Cork
you
makes
make Jeff
love
Cork?
to it on a nightly basis,
Yeah.
actually. So I wonder where he was
Oh,
at.
that was pre-Jeff Cork.
Okay.
Oh,
Actually,
interesting.
that was...
Clark would have changed that conversation.
Yeah,
He would have
absolutely.
put it in the right
I mean, this was
direction.
like, God, this is like 2005 or something. I mean, whenever Chibi Robo came out,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
forever ago. Yeah. for
Jeez.
sure.
Okay,
what
so
else was
does
there?
Pikmin look good?
Um,
I don't know if I'm sold on that
yeah,
pitch.
Yeah, I don't know if it. I don't think so. No, I think it's a weird thing because like I actually don't really like Pikmin that much. I played all of them. I beat 2 and 3. I never beat 1. I've never really enjoyed them that much. But I
Okay.
played them all the way through.
I like the idea of you playing a Nintendo game with just this frown on your face.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
This
I'm
isn't
really
really for
excited
me.
about that.
You're
Like,
that, you're that guy that leaves negative Steam reviews on my game with like 400 hours played.
Yeah, I don't really play
You're that guy.
Steam games though, so that can't be me.
Yeah, but you're that guy.
I'm that guy.
Ah.
You all hang out.
I hate this, especially watching the credits. Ugh.
Okay, keep going on the list. What
But
else
the
we
thing
got?
that I'm going, the direction I'm going there is like someone like Ben Reeves really likes Pikmin, and he likes that sort of the almost kind of weird RTS angle of Pikmin. So I could see him just being disappointed in that. But I look at it as like, oh, this looks like a cool action platformer with Pikmin characters that are cute, and
All right.
I think I'm kind of interested in it, but I don't think Pikmin fans are going to be super into it.
Yeah. All right, what else we got?
What else was there? Some new amiibos. A Yarn Poochie amiibo, which is part of Woolly World port for 3DS.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it looks
That's
like
an ambitious game visually to port.
yeah.
Wow.
So that's a straight, but that looks like a straight port, and then they added like Poochie levels, so you can play as Poochie now, and you can bring little Poochie pups with you, and they'll show you where all the secrets
Back
are.
to his home planet, hopefully.
That's right, and you can they
Okay.
have a Poochie plush amiibo, which is going to be really adorable.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good time, right, guys?
It's going to be really fun to shove it in your mouth. What else you got?
New Zelda amiibos, more amiibos. They have 4 new Zelda amiibos, some Hyrule Warriors DLC, which I know you're excited. Oh, the biggest announcement of all, Picross 3D 2.
all
Oh,
right.
nice.
That's out.
I will get on board with Picross 3D.
Yeah, you can download it right now.
Picross 3D is sweet.
Yes,
Right
I
now.
love Picross. Yeah, Picross 3D is awesome. They announced it for Japan like I don't know, like a year ago or something.
Yeah.
And every time I email Nintendo about something, anything for the magazine or anything, I'm always like, get business out of the way, and then I'm always like, by the way, when's Picross 3D 2 coming out? Thanks. Love
Well,
Kyle.
you can't
P.S. I
ju- you
have a
can't
daughter.
Yeah,
You can't just localize that in like a week, Kyle.
You don't
Come
think so? I don't know. There's a lot of lore. You gotta get that lore master achievement. You gotta poop sock your way through Picross.
Oh,
Did I use
nice.
that correctly? Is
Yeah,
that
you
how
did.
that works?
Yeah.
All right, Mario Maker's exciting. And, like,
Yeah.
get it beyond, because it's such a beloved game, to get it beyond the Wii U install base. I
Yeah.
hope it's not a bastardized port.
I was hoping that they would have, like when we talked about that sort of inevitable Mario Maker, we were hoping that it would be like it would use Game Boy Mario game assets, which would
Yeah.
have been really cool. So it's
Just
not that.
the freaky, like, first Mario land.
Get those Easter
Oh,
Island
yeah.
weird
statues.
UFOs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another like
yeah.
jank movement that like he didn't move at all, like Mario.
Yeah.
like proper like.
Well, we
Nintendo
know
Mario.
you hate polished games, so they also announced like a Mario sports game. Like it's like a compendium. So instead of doing like Mario Tennis and a Mario soccer game, it is like a Mario Sports, and it's going to have golf, horse racing, soccer, tennis, and a fifth one that I can't remember.
I
So
feel like
there you
they
go.
did they did the sports mix.
They did Well, they did Wii Sports, obviously.
Yeah,
But
I
they-
want to say there was a sports mix game on the Wii as well.
Okay, but I like this direction for like Mario Sports. I think it's cool to kind of put a whole bunch in one rather than sort of isolate them into separate games. So
Yeah.
that could be cool.
All right, that seems all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nintendo correspondent.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I like Mario. Big fan.
Dan, do you care about any of this?
Yeah, Mario.
Do
Oh,
you?
I'm not even
They
being
also-
sarcastic there.
But don't you not like the 3D Marios?
Correct. But
Okay.
on 3DS,
You know, I can get with Dan on not liking
Not
the 3D
liking
Marios.
3D
I love
Mario.
3D
Have
Mario.
you played any of the Galaxy games?
Yeah.
You know, the good ones?
Yeah.
3D Land, 3D World.
Have you played 3D World?
Super Mario
I can live
64.
without that stuff.
Yeah.
Give me Super
3D
Mario
World.
World.
and 3D Land,
So good.
some of the best design games of all time.
It's weird. People like ignore those games for some reason. Like I'll talk
Right.
to Mario fans and they're like, I didn't really want to play 3D World. I'm like, it's so good. They just didn't even give it a chance. It's weird. I don't know why.
And there's a NeoGaf thread praising 3D Land that I
Here we
went back
go.
through it and watched a ton of footage of 3D
so
Land as
good.
well. And I didn't realize that there's like that equal debate between people arguing between Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. And there's also that debate between 3D Land and 3D World.
Oh, weird.
And a lot of people just hate the multiplayer of 3D World. I had so much fun with it though. I can't bash it, but maybe if you just want a pure Mario experience, like 3D Land is so smart. I kept a note in my phone that's a list of everything that game does that's smart. Because I was playing through it
that's a
again.
long-ass list.
It is. It's a super long list. My phone was smoking by the end of it. It can't contain all these good ideas for how to make a 3D game.
There's also I'm checking myself because I didn't write it down, but I don't remember the name. But they did announce a new like IP, like it's a tank game, and it almost kind of
Tank.
No, it's not Tank. It almost looks like World of Tanks if Nintendo had taken a shot at it.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
move.
So, but it doesn't have online multiplayer. It's just local
Okay, never mind.
multiplayer and then single
Never mind.
player.
It's-
But
Never
Wait,
mind.
what's it for?
3DS. It's all 3DS.
Oh, that's
that was
right.
all. Everything is 3DS today.
Wait, so it just looks like weird, like Advance Wars style tanks, and you just battle it out?
Yeah, it's like it's an action game. It's not turn-based like Advance Wars, but it just reminded me of World of Tanks the way because like you're kind of like slow-moving snipers
With no
almost.
online play.
It
It's so
smells
online
like
play.
Steel Diver to me.
Could be. It could be that
Steel
developer
Diver, wow.
actually. Yeah,
Okay.
but with tanks, and it has like I guess you can be like the character that you play as. Like you choose a character, and then that their attributes go into the tank. So it's not like you're picking a tank. Like you pick this dude who can like freeze tanks, and then you jump in your tank and you can freeze other tanks.
Do you still get to pay like $5 for one match's worth of super bonus gold ammo?
I don't know.
League of Tanks coming soon.
A lot of stuff. Oh, also, Bill Trinan got shipped to Chile and had a big crazy beard, and
I haven't been keeping up with my Bill Trinan lord. What's he doing? He's in Chile?
first he stole Reggie Fils-Aimé's new Galaxy 3DS, which is just a beautiful piece of hardware. Let me tell
so
you.
stupid.
Wait, so Nintendo Direct is basically pro wrestling now?
Is that what you're telling
me?
me? I think
yeah,
so.
goofy skits, yeah. I'm totally on board for these goofy skits. I love them. They're so
I'm completely
stupid.
with you, and I love that you have a continuing storyline of the adventures of Nintendo. Just what's happening.
He
in
had
that
Reggie's
office.
3DS, and then he stole one of Reggie's donuts, and then Reggie was coming. He was like, "Oh, I got his donut. I gotta hide." And he jumped in a crate that got shipped to Chile, and then he showed up a couple days later with a beard. It's good stuff. You should
This
go
is
back
the
and
worst.
watch it.
Is it a
Okay.
fake beard?
It's super fake. It is the fakest beard that's ever been committed to film, I think.
That's cool. I love it. Have at it, man. Good stuff.
Fucking go
Rock
for it.
out. Rock out.
Hey, Adam, what's it like moving to the dev side? We've been talking a lot about good ideas for game design, bad ideas for game design. What's it like to be on the side that's actually making those choices?
Well, it's a ton of fun. First off, it's very interesting. It's a lot more. The absolute first thing that I noticed that has really stuck with me throughout the my vaunted game development career this last
You're like
year
Sid
and a half.
Meier, yeah.
Yeah, is just how, especially like coming from Game Informer, because at Game Informer, which was pretty much my entire professional career before moving over, is basically you get assigned a story or you pitch a story or whatever, and you go and you do it and you make it happen, right? It's like and eventually you come back and you go through editing and do that kind of stuff. But in game dev, it's just the team it's so much more collaborative between everyone that like. It's like, hey, I have this great idea. Okay, well, what do the engineers think? What do the artists think? What does the producer think? Like,
Right.
because everybody has to be on board. Because it's like, unless it's something that I can execute literally myself within whatever spare time I have, who knows? Because there's a ton of other stuff that I have on my plate that I need to get that done so that these other like 5-10 people can get on with their jobs and all their stuff to do. Because getting all that stuff together and getting a game out the door or any release out the door, it's even for just maintenance patches and stuff. I mean, that's a lot of interlocking pieces. And so. And this is not news to anybody who's worked on any kind of software development, I'm sure, and game developers will totally laugh at me like, yeah, duh. But it is really striking.
Yeah.
And so
And when everybody has an idea and everybody's trying to float them around, like, oh, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, maybe this will work.
no,
Like,
that you don't do that because that's how you fail to ship a game.
that's Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, yes. I mean, or like to pick a more modern example, like Firefall. If you remember
yeah.
Firefall, like that's how you get a game like Firefall is you have way too many people without nearly enough leadership, without very much of a cohesive vision, and everybody throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And you have artists who are blocked up, and I don't know this specifically about Firefall, but like you have artists who just sit on their thumbs for like a month dinking around with different concepts and stuff because they can't do any production art because none of the models have been approved because the designer hasn't gotten off his ass to like blah 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 blah. Right? It's like it's just a series of dominoes, and it's just and then it's just a ton of money out the door every month.
So never get into game development? Is that the lesson?
No,
here?
it's awesome. It's super fun. It's because when you build something, when you get it out there, I mean, it's just like publishing, like you guys do, like I did forever. When you build something and you get it out there and you start getting those reactions from people and you see people having fun with it and engaging with it, I mean, that's the best. It's totally the best.
I'm really fascinated because you've been an RTS fan for so long, and then you got to work on Ashes of the Singularity.
Yes.
What did you do for Ashes of the Singularity? What was your role there?
So early on, my role was kind of just evaluating, game dev, or design like white papers and documents and stuff like that, and saying, oh, I like this idea, from this perspective, or I don't, or whatever, to kind of just be the reality check a little bit.
Okay.
And then once I didn't really get involved on the dev side of the game until it was well into full production, meaning that like, the engine was there, the art was at least stubbed in, so the units were in the game, everything was working. And so my job has been primarily building the content. So that's building the maps, building the scenarios. I've basically done all the creative for all the DLC, which is, I think we've shipped like 4 or 5 DLC packs or something like that, a bunch of free content patches. And I don't want to say like I made the DLC myself, because there's a ton of other people like how much credit do the artists and the producers and I mean QA, obviously. Right. Like obviously there are a ton of people who were part of that production, but like I made all the maps and all that kind of stuff. And so that's been very interesting.
What do you do when you're trying to come up with a scenario for an RTS game? Are you going back and playing the classics and like breaking it down into the templates of like, okay, there's this type of mission, there's this type of mission. There's building a base missions or not building a base missions.
Building a base missions are terrible and should generally not be used. Is my philosophy, because it just doesn't play to the strengths of the genre at all.
Yeah, but every mission you don't want to have to rebuild a base. That also becomes such a grind in RTS games.
It can. I do things like this mission is about. Some of the, especially for like the campaign. So like right now I'm working on the campaign for our escalation expansion, which is an expandalone in the lingua. So you buy, you don't have to own the base game, and owners of the base game get it for a discount and blah 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 blah. Anyway, comes out this fall. Buy it. It's great.
We'll be that.
So building the campaign for that. So for that specifically, it's like, okay, this mission is about highlighting this new unit. So like, what does this unit do? Oh, it's an air unit that is really fast and does a lot of damage against buildings, but sucks against units. So obviously this is a unit that's good for raiding, right? So like, okay, let's script out a mission that makes sense and build a map and kind of precede the map with a bunch of stuff that makes sense, where it's like, okay, for example, I'm pulling this out of the top of my head. This is not what that actual mission is about, but just to illustrate, like, so, okay, this has the enemy has a bunch of distributed bases around the map, and it's getting a ton of resources from them, but they're not really all that well defended. And so your winning strategy is more than likely going to involve building a bunch of these air units that are really good at raiding, so you can fly around the map and disrupt his production, right? So that's one way. Another way is like I literally have a big old spreadsheet with a ton of ideas that are rated by like difficulty of doing and time and a couple other things. So I just go to the spreadsheet and I'm like, okay, because I just sit and brainstorm like ideas, like, oh, how about you could do this, right? And so most of those have never been made because it's just a big blue sky, document that's just full of ideas. But honestly, most of the time I go to the list, I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting, and then my brain gets off on some other tangent and I make something completely different. But it gets my brain working, right? And so I don't know, it's super fun. Like I said, like I get to build missions and scripts. And
how surreal was it for Game Informer to review that game? And one Dan Tack, perhaps.
It was in fact Dan Tack. It was not really. I mean, like, it wasn't. Well, not really surreal.
Dan Tack would like me to put up a divider between the two of them at this point.
Hey, I actually decided before I came on here that I wasn't going to give Dan any crap about the review.
Oh, good. All right. No crap throwing involved.
No poop socks.
You can look it up on your own if you'd like.
No, I mean, it's fine. Like, I mean, you probably wouldn't be surprised having done this for a while, but most devs, when you get past the PR nonsense, are pretty freaking honest about the games that they ship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they know. You know, like Harvey Smith was not surprised when Deus Ex 2 came out and everybody was like, what? This is terrible. The levels are tiny. Right?
And
he was
now
not surprised by that.
There's such a groundswell of love for Deus Ex 2. It completely hit me out of the blue. We did like a Human Revolution game club where we played through with the community. There's so many emails that are like, oh, talk more about Deus Ex 2. That game rules.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe it's like the Xbox crowd or something.
I got
don't know.
so much crap for my review of that back in the because I totally overrated it. I gave it like a 9.5 or something. It totally
Holy
deserved
Lord.
It was insane. But I mean, I was a younger man then.
Wish that was Invisible Ink. You wrote that review in.
Whoa.
Hello.
Isn't that its own game? Invisible Ink? That's what I thought you were referencing. I was like, that Clay game?
Anyways, but
I mean,
a
like,
weird moment.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's weird. Like, I mean, it's weird coming back here and like seeing everybody and like the same dudes up on the 6th floor still like coming up and down the elevator all day. That have been
really
doing
weird
it for the last like
Yeah.
literally 14 years.
We have no idea what kind of businesses are above us. It's
But
a
it is
mystery.
they move a lot of things around. You know that.
And they don't
Product,
like saying
we'll
hello.
say.
We know that.
No, there's one friendly dude. I saw a friendly dude, and he was just as friendly as he always has been.
No.
One of them asked me
no,
about
it exists.
Pokemon Go the other day. So it's really, that game is just bringing everyone together.
Quit bragging, eh? All right, well, cool. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the email section, I'm sure. Real quick, a game that Jojuba reviewed is Obduction. Dan, you know a little bit about this. You
Yeah.
saw it at E3.
I agree. It did not have a whole lot of like leading up to it. Like
Yeah.
I found out about it mere months before release. But I did get a chance to play it at E3 and see it at E3 and talk with Rand Miller.
And so
Creator.
these are the original creators of Myst and Riven.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
the two brothers.
And they worked on Uru, U-R-U,
Yep,
as well.
and
Ages
Riven.
of Myst.
We kind of don't talk about that one. Like mostly just Myst and Riven, and you kind of just like
Yeah, there's some other stuff.
there was a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is very much in that vein.
Absolutely, and I was really curious to see, especially with the VR option, how it stood up today. Because what I played was straight Myst, like,
Mm-hmm.
and while I thought Myst was really cool, that was 20 years ago, right?
There's
Like,
literally an option in the menu so you can make it point and click,
Yeah.
like the original Myst, if you really want to, if you want to be hardcore about it.
So I was wondering if that kind of thing would stand up today, because Myst was incredible, but some of that has to ride on the fact that it was like one of the first big CD-ROM titles, like.
Multimedia. Remember when everything
Right.
was branded multimedia?
Yeah,
You
man.
could not buy
It's
anything
crazy.
that didn't say multimedia.
Yeah, and they made great use of it. All the music in that game, having the videos and the books, which scared the bejesus out
They're
of me as a
awesome.
kid. And I went back and listened to those again. Wasn't scary. I think it was just like it was mixed loud or something. I just remember being in my basement playing on my computer and
it's
when
'cause
a
it-
guy's screaming at you from a book saying "Help me!" It's like okay, that's the scariest thing I can
It's
imagine.
because that was so crazy for the time.
Yeah.
Now that stuff is like, a joke compared to in-game stuff, like
Right.
by beyond. But like back then, it's like, wow, there's a video in this game. Wow. And I remember being like that. Exactly.
And in Abduction, they have FMVs.
They do.
Again, it's a little bit confusing. Like one of them, there's like this. So you're dropped off in this really interesting world. There's an interesting setup to it. Out of the gate, the world looks 1,000 times better than I expected. It is gorgeous. Really check out how this game looks at least. And it's basically just a little bubble of Arizona looking environment in the middle of the sci-fi world. So you can like look outside and see this alien planet with just an awesome landscape. Looks like a sci-fi book cover, you know? But then it just looks like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon where you're walking around. Anyways, there's no direction. You're thrown out there. Hey, there's a couple things to fiddle with. Have at it. And one of the things is this door, which you can like ring a doorbell on, and then a man shows up. I believe it's one of the creators. He looks vaguely familiar.
They do, as they did in the original Myst,
Yeah.
they like to use themselves as,
It's the book boys.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
The
it's
old
just,
scary book boys.
I don't know if he's meant to be like a hologram. He looks kind of 2D-ish, like a flat FMV behind the door. It's a little bit confusing, but it's a fascinating world. No direction, so I'm wandering around trying to figure out like what is going on. This looks so amazing. I want to find stuff to fiddle with, stuff to putz around with. And then I see this
Fiddling and putzing is mostly what I'd like to do in my video games.
hell yeah. And then there's like this weird dog thing on a table, like this dog sculpture with like pins of little dogs on it. And I'm like, here we go. First big Myst puzzle. The old dog statue. Walk up to it, select it, and it says backer reward item. Like the first text in the game is just telling me that this is like a Kickstarter backers.
Yeah, he had to
a
make
pet
the game.
dog that they put in this game. It's like, okay, well, that takes me out of the sci-fi world a little bit, but all right.
I'm so over backer rewards in games. I was going back and playing through some Pillars of Eternity again, and like all the terrible NPCs with their terrible backstory. Like, oh god,
It's not going to age well.
Ugh. It already hasn't aged
Yeah.
well.
But if you're a fan of Myst and Riven, definitely give this game a look. Joe is a huge fan of those, and it seemed like his review, he gave it a 7.5. And he's like, parts of it really go back to that glory time, and then other parts of it just don't feel clever, and the puzzles can be clumsy and frustrating later on. But if you're a fan of those games, it's cool to have a new thing in that vein, other than The Witness.
I was just about to ask, did you play The Witness at all?
Yeah. I'm more into this, though, because Witness, it's like, it's cool, but your only way of interacting with the world are those puzzles. Whereas as this, it's not like, here's a set puzzle, here's a set puzzle. It's just, there can be subtle stuff. Like you climb up on the scaffolding, it's like, here's a button, you can press it.
What if I putz with this?
Yeah, exactly. It's more putzing. There's not putzing. It's just Witness was just throwing challenge after challenge, very discreet at you.
Putzing.
Kyle,
Wow.
you want to talk about a couple games that you played a little bit?
Yeah, I've been playing Mega Man X on my 3DS.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, high five across the table from Adam. I've also been playing Resident Evil 5 on my PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's move on.
Keep it rolling. Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
This is out on absolutely everything
Yeah, pretty much.
at this point. And you were pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah, we're not reviewing it. I guess we should preface that right now, unless we suddenly decide we're going to review it. It's just a matter of how many people are in the office and how much time we have to put towards reviews. But I played a good chunk of it to prepare for like our test chamber video, and I played it at home for fun. That's how much I've enjoyed this game. It's cool, man. It's just I'm not even like a big fan of the show. I've seen a couple of the episodes and I liked what I saw, but I just was like, I'll get back to this someday.
It's a cool premise.
Yeah.
It's like a version, is it Earth, a different planet? Who the hell knows? But there's survivors trying to survive against giant titans, which are just giant naked men that are roaming the earth and eating all the humans. So they built a wall to try and protect themselves from these naked men.
Yeah.
First 8 episodes or so are really good.
Yeah.
And
After that, just
they totally was like it was really interesting, and then they totally wussed out on what looked like a really brave decision to do something interesting with the storyline. And at that point, I was just like, ugh. And I finished it. I finished the first season anyway.
Yeah.
Because I had a sunk cost of I'd already spent all this time watching it.
Sure.
And it's not terrible, but it goes from like, oh, this is really interesting, this is really cool, to like, this is another anime show that I could just throw in the garbage.
Yeah, for me, it was a lot like Sword Art Online, where you watch like 8 episodes or so, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And then just ignore the rest of the series. Don't forget it ever happened.
Okay.
And just hold those episodes, and that can be your vision. Because after that, it goes all downhill, and just like, what? No, I don't really even want to watch them. Okay.
Yeah, see,
So is this just another Omega Force game? The Dinosaur Warriors creators?
it definitely does feel like an Omega Force game at times, but the thing that I just really like got me sort of hooked in was like the movement in the world, because it feels almost like Spider-Man 2, where you're kind of like ziplining everywhere, and it just feels really fast, and you can boost in midair, and like so you can just like grab onto a building and it flings you across the world. Then you can dash through the air and like throw up some more cables to fling around. Like it does a good job of making you feel like you're moving really fast through the city.
And so you're like grappling around titans flying around trying to tackle
Yeah,
them,
so
right?
you can lock onto a titan, you grapple on them, and then you can actually just like, if you're moving the control stick, you can rotate around them. And once you let go of the control stick, you start zipping towards them.
Yeah.
And then again, you can dash towards them to get more speed. And then you just got to time your chop to like either lob off their legs or get the back of their neck. And it's just really fast, and I just love the movement. The movement is so fast, and it's nice because it's still that Dynasty Warriors kind of setup where you have that big open map and there's like little icons all over the place where you need to get to.
Terrible UI.
Yeah. But now you can get there super fast. Like you don't feel like it's like, oh, there's a fight over there. Let me walk over here for about 10 minutes and not fight anybody on the way there. Like you're there in 5 seconds because you're Spider-Manning your way across the world.
So if you're a weird video game movement fetishist like Kyle Hilliard, check it out.
To be fair,
And that's pretty cool because that's just like the show, right?
that is totally
I mean,
one of the like the action in the show is really good. But I just want to say real quickly that exact same thing is what makes the entire Mega Man X series special. Is how you move
Bringing
through the
it
world.
back around. Yes.
It
You
is
can
seriously
dash.
how you move.
Yeah.
You dash,
Jump on
you
walls.
air dash, you do wall slide. Like it's just like
Thank you,
compared to-
Adam.
High five.
Yes. More high
About
fives.
time Mega Man gets some love.
I know.
Yeah.
We never talk.
Nobody's
we do
ever done
not
that,
talk
yeah.
about Mega Man X enough, but it is kind of a strange point that like I bring up that game because you can move through that world really well, and it's a lot of fun.
Right on. So it's not out yet, but October 14th, they're releasing Dragon Quest Builders, which is Dragon Quest Minecraft. But it actually seems cool. It's out. It's been out in Japan for a while now, and I know it got a positive reception over there. But you played a little bit of it. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I played, I don't know, first couple hours for like a preview, and I liked what I played because I've spent a lot of time with Minecraft. I enjoy Minecraft, but I also don't really love the directionless nature of Minecraft, where you're just kind of given a bunch of building blocks and go have fun. Like Dragon Quest, you're building things and you're doing that sort of core mechanic of like breaking apart the world into little pieces and rebuilding it somewhere else. But you have missions and you have direction and there's a story and there's like reasons to go out and search and fight things. And it seems cool and it's really cute. It's got a cool art style.
Really nice art style.
Yeah.
Looks much better than you expected. It's kind of like in that Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, where it's like, oh, it's nice to see a cartoony take with like really high fidelity cartoons. You know?
And the sort of the blocky nature of the world almost works because it's almost like a callback to like the original Dragon Quest. Like it almost looks like modern pixelation in a weird way, if you really want to. Because it's like a alternate version of the original Dragon Quest, I guess.
It's a fun piece of lore, so I'm really into this. So the way that this is set up is in apparently Dragon Quest 1, which I've never played.
All right, that's it.
Is that okay?
I have to play Dragon Quest 1?
You gotta go play Dragon Quest.
I played 5, which I hear is the best.
You don't
and I
have
loved
to go
it.
play Dragon Quest.
Thank you, Adam.
I just imagine it's going to be brutal. But in Dragon Quest 1, apparently like the final boss is like, join me, let's remake the world in my good name. And you have an option of yes or no.
And if you say yes, you lose the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Super cool.
Baller.
That is
but if you say yes, you get Dragon Quest Builders. Because the premise of this game is that you're rebuilding the world if you said yes in that original
awesome.
game.
Yeah, it is cool. Like, I've never played the original, but I thought that was awesome. I was like, I love the idea.
Dan,
What is wrong?
I doubt maybe 3 other people in this office have played all of Dragon Warrior.
Just Dragon Warrior. It's not that long.
Okay.
Like, for an RPG.
Have you played a lot of the Dragon Quest games?
Yeah, like 1, 3, 5.
Yeah. Is
You
5
haven't
just the
played
best?
2?
I've played 2. 2's no good. I said it ones I like.
Okay, 5 is the best.
5's good.
Okay.
I'm all about the classics.
What was
too.
it? What was the PS1 one that was like
7.
5 million years long? Was that
7's pretty
7?
good.
7 is being remade for the 3DS.
Yeah, later this month.
It was seriously, it just like endless freaking grinding.
Sounds like Metal Gear Solid
It was
2.
so slow.
Yeah, there is some grinding in most of the Dragon Quest games.
Well, speaking of Akira Toriyama, Kyle, I want to talk to you as a Dragon Ball Z nerd real quick.
Oh, no.
About this game.
Watch 8 episodes of that show. You're done. You got everything.
You get it.
They've taken off their shoes. That's as far as you get.
So there's this game out on 3DS in Japan now. They haven't announced it coming stateside, but it's a Dragon Ball game. It's coming stateside.
There's been rumors, trademarks on Brazilian sites or whatever, Korean.
And that's all you need is the hot Brazilian sites. But the entire pitch for this is it's fusions. It's called Dragon Ball Fusions.
Yeah.
And it is exactly the fan service. The same way those last 2 movies have just been like delightful fan service. This seems very much in that vein where it looks like the overworld kind of looks like Pokemon. You're like roaming around. It seems more action RPG-ish.
Okay.
And I'm really into the way it looks. I think it looks great on 3DS. But the entire pitch is that there's just stupid fusions in this. So all these different Dragon Ball characters are combining that you've never seen before. So as an example, I have a couple.
Shake your head,
I have a couple
Dan.
listed
That's
here.
so
Dan Tack.
awful. Sounds so bad.
Don't you want to see what Piccolo and Krillin look like when they're
No.
combined
No, I
into
don't.
Krillin? Raditz and Nappa become Nats. Android 19 and 20 join forces and become...
39.
That would be more clever. No, I think they're just calling it 1920, which is good. Let's see. Goku and Beerus fuse. Gohan and Hercule fuse.
Wait, what's Goku and Beerus?
I don't have their
Gearus?
names. Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Cell and Frieza become Celza, and it's it is awesome.
This is the worst fan fiction I've ever
Seriously,
heard.
Yeah,
this
but
is-
it's fun as hell.
This is like being 11. It's like, what if like Luke Skywalker and Samus Aran fought together
But you
against
have
Bowser?
good artists and money.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? That's the kind of motivation I want behind games. That's how Smash Brothers comes about. That's how the best RTS missions come about.
What if you hold this fort?
What if instead of attacking, you have to defend against dragons?
19 minutes.
I want to play this Dragon Ball game.
God.
And I really want to play Dragon Ball Fusion.
Is it a fighting game or is it? We're not sure.
There's action sequences.
You're excited
it's
about it,
all,
but you don't know.
It's all trying to
yeah.
break down these.
That's all
I'm
it takes,
excited about
man.
the concept, Dan Tack. The concept's fun as hell.
Dan doesn't make
I'm really
any
excited
judgment
about
calls.
things I don't know about too. 'Cause they could be good.
Yeah, like World of Warcraft 2. It's going to be great. Anyways, you guys, do you want to move on to community emails?
Now let's talk about Dragon Ball Z some more.
All right, community emails. Here they come. And welcome back, everybody. We've got some red hot emails from the community. Adam, the way this works now is it's like those old reader mailbag episodes. Remember those?
I do.
All right, except now we're going to read all these, each and every one, and then we're going to choose our favorite at the end, definitive favorite, and then we're going to ship them out something real nice. It is a secret surprise. This time it's the expansion to your game, Adam.
Ashes of the Singularity
That's right.
Escalation. It comes
That's
out this fall.
That's what we're going
codes.
to put it in the box.
Available on Steam.
There
Can
it
you
is.
burn it onto a DVD and then we can ship it to somebody? Is that how-
Anyways, John DeLuca writes in. He says, "Hello, Ben and crew.
Hanson,
On the last episode,
real quick, that game for 3DS,
Oh my God!
it's called Tank Troopers.
All right.
That's stupid.
People, you can lean back in your chairs now at home."
I was gonna lose my mind if I didn't find out what it was.
I
John
felt really dumb
DeLuca
for
writes
getting it.
in. Kyle, hey Ben and crew.
Oh, to me.
Good
It
God!
was Tank Troopers is what it was called.
On the last, how do people live with you? 2 of them. On the last episode,
I don't know. It's not that.
one of you guys mentioned that you don't generate hype because you follow the listeners and readers lead. This is Matt Burtz. We're talking about generating hype for games and whatnot. Anyways, John says, if that's true, do you think the majority of readers actually write in or call, etc.? I think the silent community is much larger than its vocal counterpart as far as feedback on what games we should cover. And that's true. I think Burtz specifically was talking about like views on the website, which is a very easy way to track, like, hey, what are people clicking?
Oh, sure.
That type of thing. Do you guys feel like we generate hype or we follow the lead?
A little of both, I guess. I mean, because sometimes we'll cover a game that nobody knows anything about, right?
And like Adam, a good example maybe is the first Dishonored. We went on that cover story trip, and then we came back and said, "Hey, everybody, this is a cool thing. You should look at this game." Are you following Prey? Have you looked into that gameplay footage?
I just very briefly was reading a thread about it the other day.
Seems cool.
Sure.
Reiner said you can become a cup and jump
I saw-
around an environment.
I thought it was just like, okay, like what? I guess that's what we're doing. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm hype on Dishonored too.
There we go. Zach from Philadelphia writes in and says, "Hey, GI crew, the other day I saw an ad for ReCore in the Xbox One startup screen that quoted a publication saying it, quote, may be the Mega Man successor you've been looking for. Is it safe to assume that ReCore is what remains of Maverick Hunter, the first-person shooter reboot of Mega Man X that was canned back in 2010? The gameplay is sounding awfully similar to the core tenets of Mega Man. The rock-paper-scissors nature of the combat is there, and the color-matching mechanic. The air dash mechanic sounds familiar. If ReCore is a spiritual successor to Mega Man X, like Mighty Number 9 is to classic Mega Man, why hasn't Microsoft made that connection a bit more clear?" I don't think it is. I can't imagine they pulled anything from the remains of Maverick Hunter and put it in. There might be some clues as to those connections possibly coming up in the interview, but I don't think that's the case.
You also, I mean, you get into rocky situations with IP and who owns what. And
Exactly.
stuff like that.
But
too.
I mean, it's Inafune. Like, he has his bag of tricks when he's involved
Bag
in
of
development.
tricks.
That's right.
So that's what we call it.
Yeah. Hey, come on. But like, this works well in the past. Certain parts of Mega Man work well. Let's keep using that in the future.
He's got like ice shot in there and like gear shot and a bunch of other stuff in that bag.
I
There
hope
we go.
you fight a robot monkey.
P.S. says Zach. Last week, Ben asked if anything ever came of the Square Enix initiative that would allow other developers to resurrect their older IPs. And apparently, I had no idea, there's a new top-down Fear Effect game on the way because of it. Not quite the gritty Gex reboot we all want, but it's a start.
Wait.
It's a good start.
Fear
Yeah.
Effect, that was the game that was like, oh, there's lesbians.
Yes, right.
right,
It was like
yeah.
a Resident Evil
I
clone,
mean, that
right?
freaked me out.
The Halloween lesbians. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And
Okay.
I guess there was a Kickstarter, and Square officially licensed this out, and there's a top-down
Huh.
Fear Effect game coming.
I beat that first game. I played all the way through.
Quit bragging.
Good job, Kyle.
I'm a cool
Eric
guy.
Seal writes in and says, Adam Biessener, what was it like to be engrossed in so many different kinds of PC games at Game Informer and then transition to focusing more strictly on the strategy genre with Stardock?
So that's actually one of the big reasons I took the Stardock job, is because strategy has always kind of been my first love. Strategy and RPGs, but
I imagine it's just that Simpsons, though, with the donut. Like, here's all the donuts you can eat. I imagine that's what Tim's going through with Resident Evil as well. Like, it's like, well, you like this, don't you? All right.
I mean, you know what happens in that skit? Like, he just keeps eating them, right?
So
And
are
the
you
devil-
that
the devil
Homer
runs out of
Simpson
donuts.
that keeps eating those donuts?
No, I mean, to be honest, it's actually it's easier because I can focus on one thing and not have my attention split all the time. Like, it's, I don't know, maybe Dan can speak to this. Maybe you haven't hit it yet, or maybe you won't. I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal failing of mine. But like
Probably.
with more complex games, like not your baby console games that like Kyle or whoever plays, but
Oh,
like
I love those. Oh man.
But
So
but with
good.
more complex games like strategy games and MMOs and stuff, it can be really exhausting to pick up new rule sets and new mechanics and all this kind of stuff. Like 3, 4, 5, 6 times a month. Like that to me, it's fun. Like, I mean, we all know that the job you guys have is super fun, right? But it can also be kind of mentally exhausting. And so like just being able to like focus on one thing and really dive into it is actually pretty refreshing and pretty nice. Like, I mean, I still play other kinds of games, right? Not as many of them as I used to. But like, is it nice to not have to review Call of Duty every year? Yeah, it is. As much fun as it is to get just absolutely clowned on by the testers when you're trying to review like the multiplayer component before the game ships, and you're locked in this tiny little room at Treyarch, and they have like these subwoofers just blasting, and you have a migraine because you've been playing Call of Duty Black Ops for the last like 3 days, and then you just get absolutely just utterly clowned by the testers to the point where like they're just trolling, like they're all just doing like knife backflip nonsense, and you're like, I have a machine gun,
Playing with their feet.
Yeah, and I mean, just going like 0-24, like I'm okay leaving that part of my career behind.
I like that terminology you use. The next email might relate to it. This email says, "Hi, longtime listener, first-time writer. My question is for Adam Biessener. How does it feel knowing that you paved the road at GI for the Tack clown car?"
I'm sure you included that one. Nice job,
I'll
Ben.
take my answer off the air from not Jeff Cork. Do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, to be more serious, like I am super proud of what I was able to do with GI's PC coverage from where it was when I came in and where I left it when I left. And I give a lot of credit to Andy and Reiner, and later on Bertz for really, for giving me a ton of reign to do kind of whatever the hell I wanted. And there was good and bad. There was Deus Ex 2 getting a 9.5. There was things like weird little games that I was able to champion and get a little love here and there. But overall,
so you rolled that boulder all the way up the hill, and then Tack just let it
slide.
slide.
Just watching it just fall into the abyss.
We love you, Dan.
You're right.
Great job, Dan.
It's just been a clown car, so hop on in.
No, it's fast. I mean, Dan and I have talked about this before, but like, being the PC editor at Game Informer is kind of a weird gig because you're kind of the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, right? To some extent.
Sure.
Except that you don't get to be king. You just have to still like, I'm one guy and I have an entire freaking platform to cover. That's like the most diverse platform of video gaming that has ever existed in the history of mankind. So
I feel
Call
for
of
Dan.
Duty?
There are a lot of people that walk back into the back bullpen and say, Dan, I have a thing that I think only you can cover, but we need it covered. That just seems like it's like 6 times a day.
Yeah, it does happen a lot.
How do you deal with that, Dan?
I look at the thing and I'm like, well, you know what? This is garbage. So I'm not going to cover that. Or I'm like, you know what? This looks pretty cool. Yeah, let's add that to the list.
Okay.
It is, again, I give particularly Reiner on this one credit for generally listening when I say, like, Reiner, this is terrible. We should not do anything with this. I'm like, okay, fine.
There we go. Paul Sirik from Grand Rapids, Michigan says, "Hello. I used to work security at a place which functioned as a hospital and had a room for a morgue. One time..."
This is going to be a good one, I'm sure.
One time...
Sending the wrong email address?
One time, as a lighthearted joke of my coworker, I hid in the morgue under a sheet.
All right.
I waited for him to come by, and as he did, I jumped up to scare him. He wasn't happy, but it was hilarious.
What does this have to do with video games?
I remember Jeff Cork once put a pair of boots in the bathroom stall and left them there all day. What are some of your favorite in-office antics from the past that come to mind?
Oh, boy.
This was against you, wasn't it,
That
Adam?
was, well, I really had to take a dump. And I was
He didn't have a
literally-
sock on him.
I legit thought that somebody was just in the can. I was like stomping around the office, cussing, because we only had the one bathroom at the
And
time.
Jeff just put 2 boots by the toilet?
I
No,
thought
there
I'd
were like
already
2
put
boots with
pants,
like, yeah,
too.
there were pants sticking out of
It's
them.
like a
it was well
scarecrow?
done.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's so good.
it was a poop crow.
I know what I'm doing next week.
Nothing but poop crows.
No, I was totally. I fell for that hard.
Were there any other pranks from back in the day you remember that really stand out?
Any that we can actually talk about in the air?
All of them we can, I think.
I mean, there was plenty of shenanigans back in the day in terms of like dumb stuff people got up to at E3.
Okay.
Just sleep deprived, overworked weirdos, just having to share little hotel rooms.
Here's a
with each
subtle
other.
one from like last week, but I really like it. It's not much, but we were asking about pizza that was going to be ordered in the office, and Ben Reeves was ordering the pizza. And so we all coordinated to ask Ben Reeves through text messages at the exact same moment about pizza. So he just got like, 8 texts at the exact same second where just everyone's like, hey, by the way, what's up with the pizza? It's
The
not
pizza
much.
all set.
I think of when Frank I pulled on Reeves one time. I don't know if I've told this one on air. I'm not that proud of it, but I still think it's funny. But so in order to get into this place, Game Informer, we need like a special key card, and I didn't have one. It's like Metal Gear, basically. You need a level 4 key card.
You got to stand in the hot studio for a couple minutes to warm up.
That's right. And so I had to borrow Ben Reeves's. And so he just gave me his full wallet because that's where the key card is in. And so I got his wallet, got into this place or whatever. And then before I returned it to him, I took a little strip of paper, and I forget if I printed it out or typed it out, but just a small little strip. I just wrote up the words "registered sex offender" and taped it to his ID.
We have lots of fun here, don't we?
And it was there for a long time until apparently he used it to buy beer at a Twins game. And then he said that the guy gave him such a weird look because he had this taped on registered sex offender thing on his ID.
I appreciate the slow burn on that one, actually.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
No, we did. There was one really dumb one we did way back in the day. And this is like, I mean, again, before you came on, it was when Jeremy Zoss and Chris Cook and Lisa Mason were all here. This is like 2003, 2004, something like that.
Okay.
And this was back in the day. We used to get a lot more like, or used to, I don't know, maybe you guys do now again, but swag, like stupid marketing crap from PR, right? Like just stupid little bits and bobs, lunch boxes and blah, whatever, stupid stuff to promote their games. And at one point, LucasArts had sent us just they sent one to like every editor, which even back in those days was still like 9 people. So you got like 9 packages of cards, like baseball cards for Wrath Unleashed. Which is like this weird like kind of strategy hybrid game for like PS2.
So
Xbox
they had Force
back in the day.
Unleashed and Rash?
No, Wrath Unleashed. This is like way before Force Unleashed.
Okay.
I mean, it's like 2004.
Okay.
And so we had just piles of cards, and so like everyone had these piles of cards, and so it was just this constant like hiding Wrath Unleashed cards on other people's desks, and like Chris Cook used to get really annoyed because he was kind of a high-strung guy. And I like Chris a lot, but he was kind of a high-strung guy, and so he would like. His office is the office that he was in has since been opened up into the sort of open bullpen in the back.
Okay.
But he would come stomping out with like Wrath Unleashed cards and just throw them on the floor. Like, God damn you guys! No more Wrath Unleashed.
John,
So that was super dumb.
that does sound great. John from Roseville, Minnesota writes in and says, I was thinking most forms of entertainment and sports has at least one person that when they speak up and say, hey, this is wrong, it needs to be fixed, people listen. I don't feel like we have that with games, especially on the development side. Is there someone you can think of who can, and if not, do you have a nomination for that role that could carry that weight? So I assume someone just to stand up and be like, hey, crunch sucks. This is not tolerable.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's talked about that incessantly for the last like 7 years.
But like the video game spokesperson, if CNN wants to like, we need video game spokesperson outside of Michael Pachter, David Jaffe, and I'm like, who else we got
Jeff
here?
Keighley.
Do we need somebody like that?
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
go-to
I mean, like,
spokesperson?
I don't think
charismatic industry.
I don't think anybody cares enough for like CNN or whoever like mainstream to cover it, right?
Unless it's a sex box scandal with Mass Effect 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hot coffee. That was the dumbest
So
thing
we
in
don't
the
need
world.
that representative from the dev side to be the king of all devs?
It should be Tim Schafer.
I mean, everything should be Tim Schafer, of course. There's no debate here.
He should host the Oscars.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of like, I mean, if you follow GDC any year, there's a ton of people, highly, highly respected people talking about exactly that kind of stuff.
Or just the head of the ESA or somebody. Yeah, sure.
Who should be the person who corresponds with like mainstream media? Is that kind of the idea? Like who, when something becomes controversial enough to move outside of just the internal game industry, like who should be that spokesperson? Is that kind of
I mean,
the idea?
I don't even know. I would disagree that like that sports has something like that. Like even within a single sport, I mean, look at the NFL and dealing with concussions, right? Like there's not really one person who stands up and says like, this is wrong. I mean, there are
There's
some.
Will Smith.
Right.
So we can probably get him. He played Descent once.
That is true.
It's a good idea. Let's get him.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a
Will.
movement. I think ultimately, like if you look in the history books and you look at, if you look at baseball, you go back to like Kurt Flood, who I think was baseball, might have been football, and like, oh Jesus! All right, well screw you
Yeah, I'm
guys.
just nodding. Man. I have no idea who these people are.
Sherman from Florida writes in. Says, hey, GI
We love
crew.
you, Adam.
I hate
We miss
all
you
of
so much.
So much.
Right to it, says Sherman. What is your opinion on the best and worst, let's just go with best, last decisions made by a developer before the launch of a game? like the Borderlands graphic change, Rainbow Six Patriots: The Siege. I think that was more is bigger than just a last minute decision. Something that maybe even changed the title. Last second changes in games that make or break them.
Or
second, like,
would a bigger way to rephrase it just mean like big changes?
Suppose so.
'Cause, like
Reboots and whatnot.
Changing the art style for Borderlands was certainly not last second.
no,
I mean,
yeah, not at all.
It was late-ish, but
Yeah. Well, there's always the Halo example, right, where they upped the damage on the pistol.
very late. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go with like changing from an RTS early on. But
No, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not last second.
one that I always think of.
But that was probably smart too. No RTSs. I mean,
I don't think anybody plays them. Certainly
yeah.
nobody buys them anymore. That's for sure.
right.
I remember hearing an interview with Genova Chen. I think it was on the PlayStation Blogscast, like months before Journey came out, and he was still very up in the air about what to do, but he was strongly leaning towards just having it be motion controls.
Oh, for Journey.
That's how you control Journey. No like right stick to move the camera or whatnot. And I always think like, God, that would have been such an annoying little caveat to everybody's love for Journey. Be like, that game's great, but motion controls.
It would have been Lair all over again, right?
Oh,
Right.
Lair.
6 out of 10 times, yeah. Did anything come to your guys' mind? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. None of those really stick in my memory, I guess.
Dan, why are you just
No, I just have.
smiling?
I have an unbelievably snarky comment here that I'm definitely not going to say.
Say
Well,
it.
now
No,
you
I'm,
have to
I'm not
say it.
going to.
Everybody write in to Dan.
There you go.
Maybe he'll
Tweet at
release
him.
this great snarky comment.
I won't.
All right. Brian Lamley from Fort Wayne, Indiana says, "Hi, everyone. Do any of you have memories of playing games you probably shouldn't have at a young age, whether it was due to violence or just adult content? I remember playing GTA Vice City when I was like 10 and going on killing sprees all the time, and I turned out just fine, I think. Thanks. I bet that weirdo that hid in the morgue played
Jury's
that game
out.
as well. As like you guys remember playing racy games when you were little?
I mean, it wasn't any worse than like what was on TV or anything. I was like,
Yeah.
we were watching G.I. Joe and Ninja Turtles and,
Yeah.
and whatever. Like
I guess it was
Dukes of Hazzard.
Mortal Kombat, I guess. Like
I guess like
Yeah, Mortal Kombat probably.
blood.
stuff in the
seems fine.
Seventh Guest got kind of racy and
What kind of
traumatic
stuff?
at times. I think it had like sex scenes in it, right?
Really?
Or something. I
been so
think
long.
it. I think it did. I think it was controversy about that, but it was pretty traumatizing horror game for a child.
Yeah.
Did you guys play Leisure Suit Larry when you were too young?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I didn't.
Oh, yeah. All the great
But
school perverts
that's
are
dealt.
into that.
That's dealt with in a more pixelated fashion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
silly.
I remember when I was like 10 or 11 or so, like playing Final Fantasy 7 and being like, oh, there's swearing in this. Like Barrett says the S word. This is
yeah.
crazy. And like I wanted to play it with my neighbor who was younger, and I was like, well, I can't because Barrett's swearing up a storm.
I remember beating Mega Man X3 and Mega Man said "damn," and I was like, "Whoa,
We're
in a new world
multiple
here.
times.
That's it.
it gets better every time."
Mega Man
You
will
know
not
what?
come up again until
I
the
actually
interview
like
later on.
Mega Man X, but I'm starting to hate it. I like
It's
that game
available
a
now on
lot.
3DS. You should check it out.
Cortland Feld says, "Hi guys, I know Kyle plays drums and I think Reiner plays bass, and both were in bands at one point. I think Reiner plays guitar. But has there ever been any thought of forming a Game Informer band? I envision Reiner on the bass, Kyle on drums, Jeff Cork on lead guitar, Dan Tack as lead singer. You can call the band Super Overblood Brothers or Wienerless Steves. Thanks guys, you're the greatest band.
It's kind of
all
funny.
time.
I think there was already a band like at Game Informer's onset, right? Like with Andy and Helgeson.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
that's true.
the Unbelievable Jolly Machine or something like
I
that.
believe
Yeah,
something, yeah.
is what it was called. No, I would like to amend to somebody else's comment, which isn't really mine to amend, I guess. But that is actually the worst fan fiction I've ever heard.
That's fair.
Tim Curry and I almost jammed once, but then he left.
Oh.
Sarcasm.
Now
leaves.
these stories are getting really grim.
All right, guys. This is a broad one, but let's go with it. Casey Boatman wrote in and says, "Hey guys, love the podcast. What is one of your favorite gaming memories?" He said, "Mine is from when I was 11 years old. Chrono Cross had just come out, and I was really excited. But right after I got the game, I got grounded for my PS1. My mom took the power cord, but not the system. I went to my dad's house that weekend and told him about it. He went out and got a power cord just to stick it to mama, and he snuck back into his mom's house then. For those 2 weeks I was grounded, I stayed up super late with the TV in my room turned down very low. I also lined the small crack under my door with a t-shirt so the light wouldn't shine through.
I remember doing that, but it wasn't for video games.
Heyo. I'll never forget it. Bummer, the game didn't turn out as great as Chrono Trigger. Well, look, Chrono Cross is still fun. I will defend that game. I remember I bought Chrono Cross. It's the worst idea of all time. As we were heading out on a family camping trip out to the Rockies. And so I bought it on the drive out and then had to stare at it for 2 weeks, just like reading that case over and over again, like, oh, this is going to be the next Chrono Trigger. This is going to be so good. GameSpot gave it a 10.
Man, I remember trying to convince my brother that I finally beat Armored Armadillo in Mega Man X.
Tack, you got any cherished
It
gaming
was
memories?
me and my brother were trying to make our way through that Mega Man X game, and boy, it was tough.
Yeah, one of my cherished games, I was actually playing Mega Man X for the first time. I was in the Ice Zone, and I was like, wow, this game looks graphically really cool. This is a really cool game.
Yeah, chill.
And then I realized I was Kyle. And
and then you're like, oh, my life is vastly improved.
How can I crawl out of my own skin?
I'm really glad he enjoyed Chrono Cross because, as you know, as many know, that's one of my most hated follow-up games ever.
What?
Like, compared to Chrono Trigger, it's just like, oh,
Well,
God.
of course, you compare anything to Chrono Trigger.
It's the sequel. It should be compared
It's not
to
a sequel. It's a spiritual successor. It's different.
I don't care.
It's like calling Shadow of the Colossus the sequel, I guess prequel, whatever the hell it would be to Eco. Like, it's a different beast. There's some,
It is a
it
different
shares
beast.
some things.
If they didn't call it that, then I wouldn't care.
Yeah, it had the same
And then no
first
one would know
word.
about it. Everyone would be like, oh, some generic JRPG. This
Well,
is just a thing.
Why? Because like Chrono was standing out in the ocean. Like that was it. It's towards the end of the game.
I
remember like the
remember-
3 characters
No,
just standing
no,
out there.
It was marketed, like, I don't know if it had to have been marketed as that at the time.
Was it? I don't remember what the
I
commercials
never would have
were
picked it
like.
up otherwise.
Well, it's called Chrono.
I do remember. So to get off the Chrono Cross tip, because it gets
Yeah,
boring
let's
anyway.
Back to Mega Man X. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but that did actually spark another memory
Spark
of,
Mandrill.
of all the. God, wow, you're really going for it. No, the worst Mega Man X boss was definitely Split Mushroom. Who, if you look at
from
him,
X4. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, just look at.
this
anyway,
is like
I think I
hell right
rented
here.
that once. Hey,
so no, so of all,
door.
for all the however dozens of hours that I spent on Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse, which is a great game, hard as balls.
Yeah.
Actually, the one time I beat it was the one time I managed to get to the freaking clone fight with Sypha with the lightning book and a assload of hearts because I hadn't died. And because it was the only way you could freaking beat that, there was like one spot you could go hide up in the corner with Sypha and just fire that Seek and lightning bolt over and over and over until the stupid clone died. And then I just rolled through Dracula at the end. It wasn't even a thing.
nice.
Got into that clone fight a million times. That's the only time I got past it.
Oh, wow.
Because that's like
best.
way at the end. That's like the second to last boss.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like my
anyway.
favorite dumb gaming things. Like that fun kind of zany state when you have like a house party and everyone's up late drinking or just having a good time playing board games, and then
Word-based board games.
and then that's right. Thanks, Dan Tech. Deep cuts. And then anyways, I had one of those parties, and then the next morning it was like one of my friends that slept over. He just hung out all day, and we played Africa on PS3, which should not be fun.
No, it shouldn't.
It really wasn't. But there's a guy that's like your tour guide in that game. And he gives a greeting. I wish I knew if it's Swahili or what African language, but he goes, Jumbo! And he goes, Jumbo, Anna, good to see you. And then we just role played that guy and his life for like an hour. And I don't think I've ever laughed harder in my life. It's like this legendary comedic moment where we're dying role playing Mr. Jumbo from Africa.
All right, Adam.
I actually do have a legit one, though,
Yeah.
before we move on. Since we were talking about WoW, I actually remember this one. It was my first guild kill of Nefarian in Blackwing Lair. This was before the game got easy moded, right? So this is like before.
This was not baby one.
No, this was hardcore, super hardcore WoW, and we'd been trying on him for like 2 weeks, I think. And our main tank had died, and I was a DPS warrior at the time, but I was able to. That's before we had all these specs and stuff like that, right?
yeah.
So I was able to just like pick up mid fight and take aggro and take him until we kill him, which was a pretty
No, that's
pretty big
it. That's
event.
pretty
Yeah.
big.
So
That
you
was,
give
that
like
was,
a
that
Tiger
was,
Woods?
that was an epic effort from your healers for sure.
Oh, yeah.
To actually keep you up for more than like 3 seconds.
Right, it was more than 3. It was like probably like a minute left in that
Oh,
fight.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
it was
a
substantial
solid,
amount of
like a
time, yeah.
minute is a long time to keep a
Right.
DPS.
He was going through one of his phases like, oh, I'm going to kill all the warlocks now or do all the main,
Oh, okay.
just doing like, so I picked him up halfway and that was our first kill. It was really cool. Like, it doesn't make any sense to people today, but those raid moments then had way more impact now than like, oh yeah, we killed a guy. We got some loot.
Sure. Let's see. This is Aaron from Cleveland. He says, "Good afternoon, podcast people. Love the show. It's always great to listen to when I'm stuck in traffic, which is every damn day in Cleveland." He
I
writes.
hear this. I already want this guy to get question of the week.
On my Twitch channel, I do a feature called Free to Play Saturday, and I've been looking for Game Informer's input on some of these titles. Not looking for anything too detailed, just a quick round of lightning reviews. Curious if you guys have any
Okay.
takes here. He says, "Neverwinter on PS4, that D&D themed MMO. Does it suck?"
Is
I
it the
enjoyed-
same as the PC one?
Yeah. I enjoyed the PC one.
All right,
It's very aggressive with the monetization.
It is absolutely.
there we go. Hawken, first-person
play
mech combat game.
Yeah, you can skip that one.
All right. Blacklight Retribution. Is it good?
You can skip that one.
Skip it.
Okay. I remember some people liked it. Warframe. Weird game, am I right?
Yeah, I think it's a great game.
Really?
I do.
It's like Destiny, right?
It has, yeah, it does. It's got lots of repetition if you can handle that, but it does do the mechanics and stuff really well. And content updates are very frequent.
Right on. PlanetSide 2.
Loved it at launch, but I mean that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of that is
Yeah,
after Daybreak
And it's on
acquisition.
PS4
Yeah.
now. And
Man, Daybreak. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
rough go. All right. Well, there you go, Aaron. Hope you enjoyed it.
No, you know what you do for free to play is new Path of Exile expansion drops in
Yeah,
3 days. Or
Very
something.
soon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
Super
game has
stuff.
a hell of a community.
And they,
so-
Path of Exile's
they
awesome.
crank out content.
They do.
You know,
No,
really do.
I have a ton of respect for those guys. They have made and they have improved the fundamentals of that game significantly over the last like year.
They have improved a lot of things. I don't know. They're still held behind. I think by the combat being
Being like floatier
Being
a
as-
little bit
it's
than
just
like
like, you know,
Diablo or
the systems are amazing. Like figuring out how you're going to create your move that makes totems when you shoot a guy, and then that explodes everything else. That's super cool. But like the actual just like I'm going to click on this thing until it dies part is I think one of the
yeah. I mean,
one of the
it
detriments.
really depends on the build. Some
Yeah,
builds are more
it does.
interactive than others for sure. But it's I mean, you're not wrong that it's as much about the metagame as it is about the game for sure. But man, what a great game! Best ARPG of all time.
There we go.
Of all time.
Wow.
Flag in the sand.
Whoa.
Flag in the sand.
You go Diablo
I love
2,
Diablo.
yeah.
I love Diablo
I go
2.
Diablo 2.
I love Diablo 2, but I would play Path of Exile over Diablo 2 right now for sure.
Me too.
All right.
Jeff writes in, hello, Game Informer crew. I'm Jeff Enright from Plymouth, Minnesota. What games have you played? What games that you have played have you spent the most money on with their microtransactions? Examples for you guys, and what deserves my money. He mentions Destiny and Overwatch. Overwatch
Man.
is a slippery slope.
I haven't spent a dime on Overwatch. I'm very happy with
Yeah,
Overwatch.
I haven't either. I just want that firefighter May so bad.
You'll get it.
Are you playing Overwatch,
You'll
Adam?
get it.
I'm not. No,
Oh,
I
man.
haven't been in a shooter mood at all. I had a bad like internet situation when it came out, so I kind of missed the wave on it a little bit. Hearthstone, I spent a fair amount of money on.
How much are we talking here?
$100.
Okay.
Yeah, Hearthstone.
Dan Tack, around that same
Hearthstone
amount?
about, yeah.
About a hundo? Do you guys
Yeah,
have
about
any
a
sort of
cool hundo.
barrier that you won't pass?
Breaking off another hundo.
Well, if you do it right, they siphon off of you and you don't know how much you spend. If
Right.
you do the free to play right.
Just wake up in a bathtub of ice.
Right. But if you do, that would be bad because then you couldn't fleece them anymore.
Right. I'm trying. I think I haven't spent that much. Like Jetpack Joyride, I think I spent
Wait,
maybe
Jetpack Joyride?
maybe like $25. I was in a
I swear, Ben Hanson
heated
always-
competition with Dan Reichert. A
Remember
high
that.
score chase for
Oh
that game.
God, I remember you
It
guys
was
were super
intense.
annoying about
I
that.
spent like 40 hours at least with Jetpack Joyride.
I have just. Oh man! All right.
It's Jim Riley's second favorite game of that year, whenever that was.
Oh, I remember that.
Behind the Dark Souls DLC.
Oh, Jim Riley.
But like Pokemon Go, I love it so much. I'm only at $10 that I've spent.
I've spent $0 on that game.
Yeah, I got
nice.
the bag space maxed out on that sucker, but
Yeah,
that
Backspace
actually is
Sucker.
pretty inexpensive compared to other FTP
What level are you
models.
guys?
It's so generous. I'm 24 still.
22.
21.
Well, it looks like I'm winning the war there, Dan.
You're winning. You're winning the battle. Let's see if you win the war.
Oh, what's the war? Like 3 years from now,
Yeah.
when you come in with a Kangaskhan,
That's-
pointing at it violently?
Yeah.
Cool. Tommy White writes in and says, "Hello, crew. I'm not sure if PlayStation Now, GameFly, and other cloud gaming services are popular, but considering that I've never met a person who uses one of those services, I would assume they're not doing well. Do you think cloud gaming will become a viable option in the future, or is it dead forever?"
I hope not.
I
hope
not.
Yeah.
It's certainly dead with the kind of business models they have for it right now.
You're talking about like streaming games. And
Yeah,
stuff, right?
the Gaikai stuff that Sony bought
Right.
for a boatload of money, and then everybody kind of
Did they actually spend a boatload of money on it, or was that like after OnLive had already kind of collapsed and they got
I think
it?
they got it like peak on live hype.
Did they?
That's my
Yeah,
memory.
I think they
but-
spent
yeah,
a
it took
Blizzard
OnLive a long time
dump
to collapse.
truck in the ocean worth of money.
Uh-huh.
I absolutely think it will be a thing, in the future.
Okay.
When? Who knows? Like, it has to reach parity. Like you can be like, oh, I don't want to play today. I'm just gonna dink around the rental store on my console. Oh, cool! I like that RPG. I'll just rent it for a week.
What do you think? 5 years?
Yeah, with the way technology goes these days, sure.
Play
Sounds
WoW
good to me.
2. Stream it. Travis from Kentucky.
When WoW 2 comes out, you're gonna get a letter in the mail. I don't care where I am. In fact, I'm gonna write it now. And then
Even if
in
you
the
died
event of
in
my
that car
death,
accident
in the
3
event
years
of my
ago.
death, deliver this to Ben Hanson.
Oh, God. Travis writes in from Kentucky. What base from a game would you like to live in real life? I would choose the Normandy from Mass Effect. It looks cozy. It's in space, and it's basically a sex lounge.
Aquarium in there.
What bit-
It
where
says,
did you
love
find
the
these
show.
things?
By far the best podcast. Thank you.
That's why you got this.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Normandy's a good pick, though. I dig that.
Yeah.
I was thinking the mansion from Vice City that you get. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm with Kyle.
What's that like? I don't remember that.
It's a mansion.
It's just a generic.
Chilling at
That's
the
all that
mansion,
matters.
man.
Yeah.
The fully pimped out Cad Nua in Pillars of Eternity
All right.
would be pretty sweet.
There's a shed in the field in Mega Man Legends that you can upgrade to put some posters in. I wouldn't mind having that shed.
I mean, the real answer is like whatever insane thing somebody built in Minecraft somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Westeros is my fort.
Yeah, right.
Maybe one of the bat caves. I guess
Yeah.
you don't really explore the bat cave very much in
What?
general.
Yeah.
in
What's
games.
going on with that dinosaur and that penny? Explain yourself, Batman.
What is he here?
He'll be here later.
I think he took it from somebody. It was a villain was using it for a plot.
A giant stuffed
I
T-Rex?
think Joker was going to drop. Oh, the T-Rex or the penny?
Wait, so the Joker's plan was to drop the penny from space
God.
and it
Yeah,
would just
something like
crush
that.
somebody?
I can believe that's actually that has got to be a real plot, right? Like,
I mean, there's a canon reason why he's got that in his cave.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Jim Cage from Pennsylvania says, "Hey guys and gals, love the show. My question is, what awful memory do you have of losing a save file or finding out randomly one day that it got corrupted somehow? Also, do you have any save files that you're really proud of from the past? I'd love if you guys did an episode of replay loading old save games and jumping back. We do that every once in a while.
yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Animal Crossing, we did one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I was. This will date me for sure. I was really bummed when the hard drive. No, it wasn't even a hard drive. It was a floppy disk on our old Mac 512 that had my Wizardry save file on it died.
Oh no!
Because like magnetic media back in the day, like those floppy disks did not last forever by any means. And that Wizardry saved. I mean, that Wizardry is the first game I can remember playing. Right, so it was like 4 or 5 or something. Never beat it. It was way too hard for
Oh
me.
yeah, that game is serious.
But yeah, it was a real bummer at the time.
I was at the end boss of Golden Sun, and my Game Boy Advance got stolen from my car, so I never beat Golden Sun. Haunts me.
I
to this
was in
day.
a similar situation where, well, let's get the full impact of this deleted save. Oh, it's brutal. So I was like in 7th grade, and I went on a trip with my friend's family as his parents were like on the precipice of a divorce.
Oh no!
And it was unbearable.
Oh jeez.
So then
this is about a video game.
it is. So then after that week, I get home and I'm like, well, look, that trip was rough emotionally to see, but I got a new kitten and I'm going to play with a new kitten when I get home because kittens are cute. You get home, my parents are like, yeah, the kitten fell onto a concrete block and actually died. So your new kitten's dead.
What?
I then was like, well, at least I'm at
is
the
this?
end of Legend of Legaia. I'm in the final dungeon. And I went downstairs and booted it up, and the main character's name is Vaughn, and then the file name just said Vaughn A. I was like, what is this? Like, oh, we let the neighbor kids come over and play your PlayStation. Hope you don't mind. And they started a new game and saved over my save.
This is like so. Like before this
my
week,
God.
you were like a normal human being.
Yeah,
and now
exactly.
You're basically Ben Hanson.
On my
Is
way
that-
to become president. And then I'm just a human being now. Yeah,
This
it's wonderful.
explains almost
I know,
everything.
it actually does, right? Like I figured it out.
Ugh.
God, that is horrible.
Yeah, Dan, you got any good
Parents would have
saves?
lied to you about
I mean,
the
I
kitten, at least.
I know it's happened to me before, like just a save file getting corrupted off a like 40-hour RPG, but I can't tell you which one it was. This
Sure.
was SNES Genesis
I just
days.
heard too much.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone I know has a Final Fantasy VII lost save file story.
That's right. That's what makes you
Like,
a man.
I don't know.
Tyler from Nova Scotia?
Probably Northern Virginia.
I think he's talking about the PBS television program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Tyler
right.
from
They
PBS.
are big fans of us on that show.
Great question here, Tyler. Would you be willing to pay a $10,000 fee to be able to eat pizza for the rest of your life for free?
I
Done.
love this kid.
Done.
I think so.
Let's do it. Let's make that.
I
deal
don't
today.
think that pays off
I don't know, I don't
financially.
know.
Oh, it does for me.
For the rest of your life? Yeah, so
See,
you
I'm
eat
not
pizza.
single anymore, so I don't think that would really work for me.
Oh, once you get married and have kids, you don't like pizza anymore?
Well, no, I just like I'm not like allowed to have pizza like 4 nights a week.
I guess that's true.
Anyway, he says the other alternative is simply that you are never able to eat pizza as long as you live. Or would you rather pay an annual fee of $800 to eat pizza?
Wait,
Is this a marketing email?
Yeah, this is a dude
This is this is like
emailing
a
you.
pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Oh, Nova's a pizza company, you guys.
Oh.
Okay, so what are the options again? Okay, so $10,000.
$10,000 to eat pizza for the rest of your life, or alternative is you're never allowed to eat pizza again.
Or something about $800 a year.
A year.
To what?
I think I would just never eat pizza
for
again.
free.
If somebody's holding a gun to my head, right? And these were like my three options.
Clearly this
There's
is a
no
gun-head
like,
scenario, yeah.
there's no like ignore the weirdo asking you a question about pizza.
Yeah, you always skip that part of these weird ass questions.
So I think I would just not eat pizza. Like, there's so much food to eat.
Yeah.
There's so much food out there.
I love pizza, but
And plus, like, how close can you get? Can you get a calzone?
Exactly.
Can we have a pizza roll here, Tyler? What are we talking about,
Get some
baby?
bread, throw some
Totino's.
cheese. I just want to add some bread to the top of it. Like,
What if I dip it in some
Like,
sauce?
this dude comes into your house and he's like,
I'm Tyler Fanova, and I won't stand for this. I don't. That seems expensive.
Nixon?
I don't think I have that much pizza.
questions this week, Hanson. What the?
Jared Kane from DC says something I've thought about lately is how few games seem to have those iconic characters anymore. I mean, the kind of characters you instantly recognize, like Mario, Kratos. Instead, we're constantly playing as John Doe everyman, totally devoid of personality or distinguishing characteristics. What do you think the last truly iconic video game character was?
Have you heard of this game called Overwatch? It's pretty cool.
Great choice. He said, I really struggle to think of anyone since Nathan Drake, and he was introduced nearly a decade ago. It's an interesting thought.
I remember when BioShock came out, thinking that the
Big Daddies.
Big Daddies.
Daddies,
Like,
yeah.
What do you call those iconic things?
like that? They instantly became like a gaming icon.
But it's not a personality. It's not a single focused.
That's just
person.
a visual. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Overwatch is a great example. I think some of the strongest character design in years and years. But it's such an ensemble. Like, you have
So
Tracer.
You're only counting the game only counts if it's a single character focus.
No,
kind of thing.
but as far as like iconic characters, I mean, Tracer's on the packaging, but it's tough with an ensemble. Is my point.
the whole ensemble is awesome. So like,
I don't disagree. They're better than every other video game character of all time, but still.
probably also close to 10 years on now. But, I mean, GLaDOS doesn't really have a body, so it's not really character design, but like from a
Right.
personality perspective.
What about this generation?
very-
Does
This
anything stand out?
generation. Like the Splatoon kids.
It's not bad.
I have played like no AAA games of this generation.
But Splatoon kids, they don't have a name. You know, you need like
Yeah.
somebody with a name. I mean, certainly there's Killzone Shadowfall's protagonist.
The tank trooper protagonist.
I mean, you look
It's
at,
tough, man.
What about,
Talion from Shadow of Mordor. Some people like.
Yeah, God, no.
I mean,
I like Shadow of Mordor, but
Yeah.
no, that I literally would not have remembered his name.
Explosion Man.
you've got like all the
Explosion
League of
Man.
Legends characters, the Dota
Yeah.
characters, the Overwatch characters.
But is there? But again,
I'm
those
being
are
completely
all
serious.
ensembles.
They are
That's-
ensembles, but those are like
The
anything
League of
outside of
Legends
an
characters
ensemble.
and the Dota characters are collections of abilities. They are not characters.
they are so characters.
Murky, weird skin skeleton boy. That's their name as well. This is how they.
Pikachu.
It's tough to come up with an iconic character.
It is.
Well, because
It
the
is
problem,
super
I mean, one of the problem inherent with this question is the characters that were cool last generation have carried over to this generation and are now
Yeah.
continuing to fill those franchises. So,
Yeah.
like, what do you want to do?
Hey,
What do you want from
wanna
Dan?
do?
He's
All right,
here to
sorry,
play the
Jared.
game.
That's what we got.
I'm here to play the game. Dan Tack, nice to meet you.
So
Trademark.
Tom from Hungary says, I just watched the test chamber of We Happy Few with Kyle and Jeff, and I was wondering, Kyle said they're going to jump ahead and going to cut a big portion of the recordings.
Ooh.
But what happens during that time?
Party foul.
They
Kyle.
just remain silent until the fun part begins, or they have some casual chit chat. He really wants to know what
is he
kind of
missing out
fun
on?
do we get up
that's a really good question.
What
Kyle.
are you not telling them, Kyle?
Sometimes I take a nap. Honestly, like for that specific example, I believe I was looking for an item. So I think it was, who was it? Me and Jeff Cork. I think. I think honestly we might have just been silent while I was just like
If
walking.
it's
around,
Jeff
like,
Cork, yeah, odds are.
I was like, I just
Yeah.
need some duct tape. Like, where's the duct tape? And Jeff was like, yeah, get that duct tape. So if you want like 7 minutes of that, maybe we could go back and upload it somewhere.
They just stand there in silence. Yeah.
But it is always this tension of like, don't talk. No one blow any jokes here. Like on replay, if like we're jumping ahead, someone will like react to a cutscene or something. It's like, oh, save it, damn
Yeah.
it. And so it's a lot of that. Or like with the podcast, it's like, in between segments, I'll always think like, oh, is this funny enough to like include in the end or save for some reason?
You're
Usually
not
the
missing
answer
out
is
on
no.
anything. What was his name from Hungary?
This is Tom from Hungary.
Tom? You're not missing out on much, Tom. I
Yeah.
promise.
I
We
agree.
keep the good stuff.
Absolutely. What did you guys like? What's your favorite question?
That's it.
That's it, Dan.
I liked the favorite fortress question. We didn't have any good responses.
That's
to
why
it,
I don't.
think. But it was a good. It was a good question, though.
Yeah, it is a
did
cool
not.
question.
I think because we didn't have any good answers, we can't use that one.
Can you
I-
kind of
I'm
like
kinda
run?
with Dan.
Can you run through maybe something like?
This
kinda-
is why I tell you guys to remember. Yes. Okay. So we have.
Adam's new to this.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I'm doing it for him. I remember all the questions perfectly, and I know the right answer.
Contenders. Adam. Shifting to only strategy.
I want the pizza one.
What about that one from what was it? Jeff Cork? That was a good one.
That's good. We got the bases. We got last minute changes. Chrono Cross. Favorite gaming memories. Let's see. I liked actually the rapid fire free to play one.
I did not like that because I know I'm going to get a ton of crap for being like, oh, he was so dismissive of that game.
Oh yeah.
Even though he wanted a 1 second review, right? That's
Yeah.
sometimes all you can say is yes, play or pass. I mean, that's. In any case, I like the pizza one because it was so out there and completely crazy. It has nothing to do with anything.
I'm kind of with Dan on that. I like the pizza because it was so weird.
It is the most bizarre question I think I've heard on this podcast, and I've heard some real humdingers.
Save files,
good.
streaming,
I did
microtransactions.
Man, I like the save files because I liked hearing that story about it, about the worst time in your life.
Yeah, it did explain the Hanson history, so I'm willing to go. I'm willing to go with that one.
I like iconic characters. I think it's interesting.
I didn't
to
like
think
that
this.
kind of character.
Okay, all right. Save files.
Save files. Save files.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Jim Cage from Erie, Pennsylvania, old PA. We'll ship you out something real nice.
Old
I
PA.
promise. That's right.
All right.
Hey, thanks guys. That was fun. Adam, thanks for coming
yeah,
back,
thanks
man.
for bringing me back.
Yeah, real
It's
pleasure.
fun having Adam.
I'm
But
a fun guy.
the show isn't over, everybody.
Uh-oh.
Stick around, and you can hear from Mark Pacini from Armature all about the development of Metroid Prime. He is an interesting guy, has very strong opinions on the reaction towards No Man's Sky and a lot of other fun stuff. So it is a good chat. Stay tuned for that. Mark Pacini, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, we talked to you a long time ago on the Arkham Origins cover story trip because you're up there showing Blackgate.
Yeah, that was almost 3 years ago now.
Does it feel like a lifetime ago for you?
Now it is. You know, now being at the end of ReCore, it seems like a lifetime ago. Yeah.
Okay, ReCore felt like a long project for you.
Well, it's been, for our studio, it's probably our largest original title that we've done, obviously with Microsoft and Concept. And it's those new IP games are sometimes really difficult to put together, and you're on them for a really long time. And when you get to the end of it, like we're at now, it seems like a lifetime ago when you actually started. So it's kind of good to pick our heads up finally and be like, wow, this is what daylight looks like. So.
Is it just a matter of pre-production taking forever, or is it just iterating systems and gameplay thoughts? And how does that work?
Well, I think that normally, when you're trying to make something new, you do spend a lot of time coming up with whatever the basic idea is and the basic game mechanics, and that could take a really long time. I mean, it might not seem like a long time, but when you're working on something for over a year and you're just playing a very brittle prototype that has some essence of fun in it, it takes a really long time to get to that point because we're dealing with it's not just a game about, simple mechanics or, something that you can mock up together really quickly. It has a story, there's an adventure, there's a world. There's a lot you need to do to just get to the basics of the game working. So even that point, while we're getting the technology and everything working, you're working on the story, you're working on the characters and what's going to make this game special and how can this game be identifiable on its own? Like, we think it's really important that you take a screenshot of the game and people right away will know, oh, that's ReCore or that's whatever game, that's really important. So that takes a long time to just understand where you are before you kick it into gear and actually start making everything. So that usually can take a year or longer just to get to that point.
Jesus. So at the end of that game's project and the whole work on it, like, how are you feeling about it at this point?
I'm feeling really good. I mean, we're at the point where I feel we've made a game that kind of shows what we can do as a studio. It's really challenging to make a game like this, just in general, but also working with our partners in Concept and with Microsoft, and just external. We've had partners in France and partners in Canada, so it's a very true distributed development situation that we went through, which was really cool because our studio is really small. the number of people from Armature that worked on ReCore relatively to this size of game is pretty small, and it really caused us to change as a studio a little bit about how we communicate to other developers and how we communicate with a publisher like Microsoft. So it was really interesting for us because we made it through all that. I think that a lot of the times the coming into a project where you're dealing with, for example, Concept, who's a Japanese developer, there's a communication barrier that you have to break through before you can productively, really start working on the meat of the game. And we already kind of had that shorthand. We had worked with them previously on a different project. So that was kind of actually the lowest risk out of everything. It was actually dealing with and creating this relationship with Microsoft and how, what are their motivations for what they want to have for their games and what is important to them. And, when does this project need to ship and how does it fit within their library? And then getting all these really great creatives from their side, like Joseph Staten, for example, helping us with story, and a lot of other developers that really came in and added a ton of value to the game in terms of, just elevating it. So that was a whole learning curve for us as a studio. And at the tail end of it, it was a bumpy road for a little bit in the beginning, just learning all that. Not only are you trying to make something interesting and cool and something that you feel, as a gamer you'd like to play, you're also dealing with relationships and different sensibilities and fortunately, right in the beginning, a lot of that we're all on the same page. And but it did take a while to get to the point. There's always a point in the game where you say, wow, this is actually fun. This is a lot of times, for the most part in game development, you're playing the worst game ever. And you're playing it for the longest time ever, because it's just broken. It's just the way it goes. You're building something and it's not very fun. And, we found the fun in ReCore about 3 or 4 months ago, right around E3 when we were getting all the E3 stuff ready and all the game was together, like long form games, like, I'll say similar to like a Metroid. This isn't exactly like a Metroid game or even like a Mega Man game. They're kind of long form experiences. So you really can't get what the game's about in 5 minutes. It's kind of, you need to have everything together and go to different places and you're crafting and you're doing different things. And once that all comes together, which is a long, arduous process, you could finally sit down and be like, am I having fun, with this? Is this what we expected it to be? Because it's all together. And when you start hearing internally, because a lot of times people are tired, people are grumpy, people want to kind of be done. They're like, yeah. We've worked on this, we really like it, but we want to kind of finish. But when you're hearing, especially in these last 3-4 weeks, other developers that like artists and animators, things like that, who don't play the game itself all the time, are coming up to you and say, wow, this is actually fun. This is really fun. And you're hearing it from a kind of an unbiased standpoint, because if anybody's not going to like it, it's probably going to be somebody who's worked on it for so long, And so when you start hearing those things internally, you're like, that's great. We've been able to achieve something that people are finding are fun. And you're not going to please everybody, obviously, but I think that more so than anything, that's important to us is that people enjoy what they're making, and that when they're right toward the end and they're really tired and they're trying to get this thing out the door, when they're playing it and they're having fun, that's really great for me to hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about like the challenge of communication across studios and Microsoft and all the like sister developers, because it seems like you guys would be specialists in communications at this point, especially like working with Japan. Like you worked on like the Metal Gear Solid ports for Vita. You're going to be working on Bloodstained. You worked with Inafune before. It seems like that's Armature's specialty, is tricky communication, especially with the ports that you guys have done. I'm sure that's a lot of navigating relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple different parts to it, really, because in dealing with, for example, Inafune-san, and we're going to be dealing with the Bloodstained group, and we've dealt with Nintendo before. It's a different type of communication, because you are talking, for the most part, you're talking about creative ideas. You're talking about the arguments about what's fun, what are people going to understand, what's going to be innovative, what can we do that's different. That's a whole different type of communication, and that's it's really hard to do that in Japanese because I don't speak Japanese. I wish I did. But when you're communicating these ideas back and forth from English to Japanese, abstract thought is really hard to translate in Japanese. So it's kind of ways that we've been able to understand how to communicate, like with images and drawings, and just being able to have a sense of what they're trying to communicate to you, rather than being so literal. There's a lot of literal things of, we'd like to, imagine a building and it has 15 floors and you do whatever. And if your first hang up is, well, we can't build 15 floors, you're asking the wrong question. It's about like, all right, what are you trying to do with these 15 floors? What's the gameplay you're trying to achieve? And then usually we adjust it to something of like that we can do and that maybe relates more to the game we're really trying to make. So that's one kind of side of it, is understanding the intent of the creative thought of how the design and what we're trying to do with the game. The other part that was really challenging is organizational structure of how different companies work together. This game was worked on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost the past year, because we had partners, like I said, we had partners in France, we had partners in Seattle, we had partners in Canada. So the communication of understanding different time zones there's a lot of Skype meetings that have to be had. There's a lot of how we do triage for bugs and what things we do work on and don't, what's important. We have a lot of creative people and a lot of business people kind of communicating at the same time. So that was really challenging. It wasn't that, and again, it wasn't like it was a bad thing. It was just a new thing that we had to deal with. And it really was kind of devoid of almost the creative side, because the creative side actually went really well between all parties. It's that business structure, organization, and communication standpoint that's always a challenge when you're working with a lot of different groups in a lot of different places all over the world.
Yeah, you mentioned ReCore. It's nice to have a game that can kind of show what Armature can do. Do you feel like you guys have been pushing and maybe struggling to find like that studio-defining game? Because you've been around for a while now. Yeah.
Honestly, it's been really tough. Partly. Basically we own everything, in terms of good, bad, and different, whatever games we've put out, we own that as a studio. And we've had a lot of unfortunate timing in the game industry. Like, for example, when we started, it was 2008, and about 6 months after that, the economy crashed, and a lot of developers went by the wayside because of funding, and mobile gaming became really popular, and it was really cheap, and people were doing it out of the back of their houses, and it was like two-man setups, and it's really hard to compete with that because you really can't. It's really hard to fund a studio with mobile games. It just is. And so we had some fortunate steps, like with working with Inafune-san's group. We worked with Electronic Arts. We worked with a lot of different people, but the timing was always bad. And so that caused us to have an up and down with an opportunity. We had a lot of people interested in working with us, but the opportunities never kind of came to fruition.
So just a lot of starts and stops, that type of thing.
A lot of starts and stops. And we were really lucky to be able to continue on through that, doing, being able to maintain our studio. We've grown over time. We've relied some on ports. Ports are a good thing to keep the lights on. And it gets people experience developing games, which is great, especially on different platforms. And it also grows relationships with publishers, because they might come to you for another opportunity, whether it's port, creative, what have you. So, we kind of fell victim a little bit. Again, I'm proud of everything we've done here, but like Blackgate, for instance, wasn't exactly the game we wanted to make in terms of time. We probably needed another 4 to 5 months on that game.
And even that would be quick as hell.
Yeah, and I mean, all in all, we built that game from the ground up in a little over 10 months. So when you're in that position where you're kind of fighting for your next meal, sometimes you agree to timelines that you normally wouldn't. You know what I mean? So we have a really great relationship with the Warner people, and we still do work for them. And we were fortunate to get that project that really helped us. But it was a sort of thing of like, was that game at that time the thing that would really define us as a studio?
Mm-hmm.
it didn't seem like it. It was the thing that got us a lot of experience and continued forward. And with games like, we just put out Dead Star earlier this year, and with ReCore, we feel like these are the types of games we want to, continue making. And out of everything, obviously, ReCore feels like it has the best shot at maybe reaching an audience. And we're in it to make good games and have really great relationships and enjoy what we're doing. And this felt a lot like the first Metroid game, is that it was a real struggle. And sometimes when it's a struggle, it could be a good struggle and a bad struggle, and I think with, the original Metroid, we were struggling because of not only time, but like we all gaming eyes were on us to screw up,
Right.
Everybody, it's like, as a developer, it's really hard right now, the way some media talks about games and like the No Man's Sky stuff that's going on right now. And it's like, it's super disappointing as a developer because we're part of that community, like I don't want to say we're making games for the community, but we're making games to contribute something, like we want to make things and this is kind of what we're offering, and it's really disappointing to see that. And I honestly don't think the first Metroid would have been made in today's climate. Honestly, it's like because we had so much negative attitudes toward us when Retro originally was told, hey, you're going to do Metroid. And then it was announced. And then everybody went in the wrong direction of like, oh my God, US guy, blah, 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 blah. I can't even imagine what that would be like now.
I think you know exactly what it's like. It's the Federation Force teams. I mean, they went through this exact thing.
It's, Tanabe-san was kind of like my mentor at Retro. And he was directing that game. And immediately, whatever opinions are about the game, that's for people to figure out what they feel about it. But I think that a lot of times it's unduly negative because of people's expectations. It's really hard to satiate that. And it is what it is. People are passionate about gaming, and that's cool. But sometimes they don't understand the effect it has on the people making it. You know what I mean? And it was really difficult. Like, I was a lot younger, doing Metro 1, so I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. Sorry if I
No, go for it.
But I didn't care. I was young enough and dumb enough to think that we can pull it off, as a studio. And a lot of younger developers have that. They have that attitude, like, I believe in what we're making and we're going to do it good, bad, and different. And that you need people like that. And, the amount of negativity that surrounded when we first showed Metroid to, like, I guess it was the E3 after that, like when we first showed gameplay, people's attitudes changed, which was great. But still there was a big delay because the internet wasn't the internet, but now it was still a lot of magazines. There was a big delay when people's attitudes would go out, and there weren't there were message boards and stuff, but it wasn't like today, So I think the climate's really different, and I really feel very like angry when I see stuff happening like with No Man's Sky and whatever. It's super unfortunate because those guys busted their ass to make something different, and it's got caught up in this climate, So it's kind of like, I think that you have to look at it in that atmosphere as well, because people are a lot more critical. Video games are like a legitimate thing now in terms of like, it's a legitimate career. It's not a black box that people get into the game industry somehow. This is a legitimate career, business that makes a lot of money. So there's a lot of critical eyes on it, and there should be. It's like any sort of media. So the times have definitely changed, and I felt some of that like with ReCore, just in terms of, there's a lot of expectation. Again, it's to mitigate your expectations of like, ReCore isn't as big a game as Metroid, isn't as big budget a game as Metroid, but there was a lot of pressure, and Inafune-san got caught up in the whole Mighty Number 9 thing, and now that's kind of, everybody's like, ooh, what's going to happen with ReCore? It's almost like, it's a good story. So I hope we pull it out, and I hope people like ReCore, because Inafune-san's group deserves that.
Yeah, and to cut that storyline off and to make it a continuing trend of like, oh, Inafune-san, since he left Capcom, it's completely different now.
It's unfortunate because it's got like people are going to make their own stories, right? Because obviously we can't say a lot about what internally goes on in game development just because of business secrets or not secrets, but private business dealings. And I think that that's kind of the unfortunate nature is that it becomes a story that shouldn't be a story. It's like the whole Mighty Number 9 thing. It's going to have a relationship to ReCore somehow, but I think hopefully in a positive way because Inafune and Sam's group had a lot of great influences on the game, and the collaboration was really awesome. So, I'm looking forward to people checking it out.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to shift people's minds. Like thinking back to like the negativity when Metroid Prime was first announced, it's like Metroid is sacred. It is this holy, just superb like mood and atmosphere, and we cannot let a Western team touch it. Retro knocks out of the park a couple times, and then it's like, okay, only Retro's allowed to touch it. And it's like next level games, don't go near it, you asshats. You're gonna blow it. And then Federation Force comes out. There's some defenders out there of that game. It doesn't take much for people to just expand their circle of what's allowed.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes people forget that there's actually human beings doing these things, that and it really does affect people personally. And I think that it's one of those things that hopefully will continue to, like everything matures, right? And hopefully the audience and the media and everything like continues to mature like it is and not become tabloidy.
Well, do you think it's tougher to take those body shots of releasing games that fans either have different expectations for or just don't meet those expectations, or to kind of sit in the dark like you guys were for a couple years there, just having projects start and then get canceled because of bad timing? I mean, imagine that was really tough as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it comes to us personally as a studio, it's one of those things where we've done and generated a lot of things over the years, and we've been around since 2008, so over 8 years now, and we've generated a lot of things, usually a lot of them ports, unfortunately, but like there's a lot of opportunities out there, but the climate of the industry, things change from day to day, week to week, as far as what publishers' plans are, how games fit into their portfolios, and a lot of games, good, bad, and different, get canceled because it just isn't relevant anymore to what people are trying to do for their brand or for their company. So I think as far as with Armature goes, is we've had some unfortunate things happen in terms of games that were really promising getting canceled because plans change, and that's the way it happens. So right now things are going well for us in terms of being able to start on original projects and take them through to fruition and publish them is like huge for us now, and our goal is to continue that trend.
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest learning period of your career? Is it working at Retro starting out? Is it founding Armature? Is it the tough years, or now actually getting some stuff on the ground?
Well, I think that the toughest things for me are I'm very pessimistic in terms of like myself or things that I do, and I think that's because I always want to try to do better, and I think that I always focus on the negative things because that's my job. Is I focus on what's wrong with something and try to improve it, right? And I think that if you don't get out of your own head, that could be a problem. So I think that in general for me, that the media thing is probably the biggest one, right? I think that's probably the one that like Blackgate was a big one in terms of like the first time we really got negative press for a game, and it wasn't that the game was bad. It's just that I don't think people wanted a non-Rocksteady Batman. And I think that's part of what, I mean, even the Montreal group got crucified for that. So it's kind of like people voted with their money, right, and with their opinions. So that was a tough one, and that's just a personal thing. But I think that growing as a professional is really, it's funny. I remember the first meeting with Nintendo, and we sat down with Miyamoto, and we were going to show him the game, what we were working on. And at this point, we worked on the game without Nintendo at all. And we went through this whole thing, and we talked about whatever. And at the end of it, my boss at the time says, "Wow, they're really upset at you." And I said, well, why? He said, like, you didn't have a pencil and paper in a meeting. Like because I didn't have a pencil and paper in front of me, they felt like I wasn't listening. You know what I mean? And that's like a very newbie mistake, right? You show up to a meeting and you're not like writing stuff down. So all those things, like, instead of being super embarrassed, I'm like, well, that's never going to happen again. You know, all those things. And that's kind of how, at least my philosophy, and I know we do that a lot here, is that it's okay to make mistakes, but just don't make them again. You know, just like keep growing from that. And I think sometimes in the industry, people are kind of like comfortable, that you'll have a lot of veterans who are comfortable in their job and don't improve. They kind of plateau and keep making the same mistakes. And I think that that's what we try to do and try to encourage in people. And it's a tough thing to do, because it's habitual for people to do, is that continue improving, continue getting better. So I think that's kind of some milestones for me, is to continue to do that. And I think that there's two game experience, like building games, that have been probably the toughest. The first is Metroid. The first Metroid was probably the toughest, hands down, game development I've ever been involved in terms of getting that thing completed. And I think it was just the amount of stuff we were trying to do in the time we were doing it. And then the second was very much echoed in ReCore. ReCore was very difficult, not from not that it was difficult in the relationships. It was just difficult because there was, we're doing new technology with new partners, all this new distributed development, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of hours to do so. People end up putting a lot of hours into ReCore in terms of development. So it takes a toll on people making it, and it affects you in different ways. So I think that ReCore echoes the first Metroid in a lot of ways, with regards to how it affects you physically. And I'm getting older.
So how the hell did you guys do that with Metroid Prime 1? How do you make that tight of a game amidst the chaos of trying to accomplish so much?
It just took it took a lot of effort by a lot of people. I think that a lot of it was, some of it's luck. You're always going to be lucky in a case that things turn out well. The other is that at that time, because with Retro, they kind of went through a lot of iterations of developers. And when the studio eventually went down to just making one game, which is Metroid, we had all the best people from all the teams that were kind of there. So you're looking at maybe a team that never would have existed before, that had all these incredibly senior people that already knew how to do a lot of the game development. So it in that way, it was kind of, again, we were lucky with that, in that regard. But again, I think it was I don't know. I can't explain it in terms of how like, there was nothing that we're like, we're going to make this and this is going to be amazing. It was more like we were making a game and making the decisions that we thought would make the game better. And then Nintendo would always come in with these really cool ideas. And we ended up creating a relationship between the two studios that worked.
It's really interesting that you said that, like, you were working on it for a while before Nintendo checked in on you and Miyamoto came knocking at the door. Why do you think that was? Did they want to just give you time to experiment? Did they just not see Metroid as a premier license at that point? Or what was the logic behind it?
No, it had nothing to do with that. I think it was just the way the studio was set up, and at that particular time, there wasn't a lot of communication with Nintendo Japan. Gotcha. And there was a certain point which that happened.
How much of Metroid Prime's success do you think was just this natural balance between Eastern design philosophies and Western design philosophies, and maybe even how much do you think there's a difference between those two?
Well, for certain, it wouldn't have been the same game. I think it would have been a very different game if it was either way. And I think that's what, in any cases, like even with ReCore and other games that we've done with Japanese developers, is that usually a lot of times ideas come out of left field of something that, well, why would we even do that? That makes no sense of why we would that, or your immediate reaction is, that doesn't sound very interesting or fun. But in a lot of cases, when you kind of peel back their intention of what they're saying, it's something like, well, I actually never thought of that. And that's something new. It's something new that may not work in exactly the way they're saying it, but if you take it, and I think this is a big part of maybe what made made those games successful in terms of the development is that we really took an honest look at it. Because a lot of times if you're in a meeting with somebody and you don't like their idea, and they're saying, I would like you to do this. And you're like, okay, that sounds fine. And then you're like, this is a really horrible idea. I'm not doing this. You don't give it the due diligence. You don't really look at it and say, if I was really going to do this, how would I do it? And I think that people sometimes are very dismissive of that because, hey, I have my own creative agenda. I want to make this, I feel this is the way it is going to be done. And then they miss out on an opportunity. And so I think that's one of the things that made it successful is that even if it was a harebrained idea, and at the end of the day, maybe if it didn't work, that's fine. But we did the due diligence on it, and we looked at it and said, honestly, if I had to ship this, what would I do with it? And a lot of people would be asking this themselves. And that's when you come out with the really cool ideas, is that if you're pushing yourself to get out of your comfort zone. And that's, I think, a lot of what Metroid was. And I know at that time we were talking about like first-person adventure. I'm like, first-person adventures are nothing new now. You have basically a lot of first person walking around and looking at stuff games, so it doesn't have to be about shooting or action necessarily to be compelling. And I think that's when we latched onto that also motivated a lot of our decisions on what was going to define the game.
And was that idea coming from Japan then, or what were some of those Japanese ideas that made you kind of reframe the way you're looking at the game?
Well, honestly, the biggest one was the visor. Because, and we've talked about this before, is that originally when we were talking about the what Samus would be able to do in the game world, we had visors in the game, but we didn't really expand too much on them. It was like, oh, you have your thermal visor and you have your X-ray visor and stuff like that, and it wasn't like, oh, you have these, like, oh, this is gonna be expected, this is gonna be cool. It's we could do something different with it, but it seemed like such a silly idea of like, oh, this is going to be, Nintendo's thing was like, this is going to be about the scan visor. This game is about scanning the environment. And we're like, okay, but this is like an action game. This is like a shooting game. But it's the brilliance of the and it was Tsunabe-san that basically was like, he had an idea of like, oh, well, what if we did this? And you can get information. This is how we do the tutorials, and this is how you give the players instruction. And we could do all these things with the scan visor. And because their motivation was, this is a game about the scan visor, and ours was not that at all. But we did the due diligence and integrated it in a way that felt natural to the game. And like, how would we want to do this? How would we do this? So that's how it went back and forth. And that was like a really great suggestion on their part, because it seems so simple now and it seems so rote now. But at the time, there weren't a lot of games like this.
Do you ever daydream about what that game would look like if it was just a retro title? If Nintendo just slapped their name on it at the end? Yeah.
Well, I know what it would look like. It would not have been anywhere near as good. I mean, why I feel that it has, that it was a good game and that people enjoy it was that because it had that collaboration. And I think that's where the best ideas come from. I don't think it would have been a great game if they just did it. I don't think it would have been a great game if we just did it. But it's because we were working together on it.
Yeah. So how many business doors open up for you when you just get to drop the idea that, by the way, I directed Metroid Prime? Is everyone like, oh, come on in, sir, right this way, have some wine?
Yeah. Well, it's the unfortunate nature of it is that I don't want that to be the thing anymore. It's like, it was fine when we were first starting in the business, when we were first starting Armature, and it did get us in a lot of doors and to talk to a lot of people, and it gave us a lot of opportunities. But we are looking for that thing of, I would like it to be ReCore, or whatever game it would be. Is that I think that, it's such a long time ago, it was so long ago. And I'm fortunate that we were able to be part of something really that people like or do like and are nostalgic about, and that's awesome. And but I think for me it's really that what is the ideal is that it's going to be something that now I could say our studio is has done this, and it's really hard because a lot of it was a good and bad thing that early on in my career that I was a part of something that was popular, or that, no, I don't want to say popular, that was good. We were fortunate to do 3 games in a row that were good, and that's rare. that's really rare. And you know, a lot of companies do the top tier companies do a really great job of continuing that quality game after game after game, like Naughty Dog and things like that. But people don't understand how there's thousands and thousands of games that get published a year, and to be singled out and people like that is really tough. It's really, really difficult. So you kind of get used to that, right? You get used to that. Almost a decade of making games, and 10, you're like, wow, this is gonna be great. You know, continue making these great games, and then the harsh realities of the world set in terms of like what opportunities are there and how long you have to do them, whatever. So I think that being part of those things was great, and I would love to be able to continue having our studio, you know, have similar success would be great.
So why'd you leave that safety nest?
Yeah, with anything, it's kind of like my whole career, even before Nintendo, when I was at Iguana, I had worked on only Nintendo hardware for over 10 years. And I really felt that, wow, I would like to try to do something different, you know, not just hardware wise, but there's just other opportunities and other types of games and ideas that we had that I know would never be able to be done here. It just wouldn't. And that's not good or bad. It's just that it wouldn't be possible. So I always wanted to either have my own or be part of a company that I own and try it. And this was the time to do it. You know, the Metroid series is over. We were looking at the next thing we were going to be doing, and it felt like a good time to leave because it would give, you know, there were a lot of talented people who would be able to fill in. You know, it wasn't like necessarily leaving people in the lurch. And I felt that at that point in my career, it was, if I was going to do it, I was going to do it then. We were, you know, myself and my partners were going to try it then. And because, you know, you don't know, you always think you're missing out on something. And yeah, there was a certain degree of a safety nest there, but at the same time, I didn't want to be just like I was saying about being comfortable. Like, I don't like being comfortable, and I want to always try to. I feel that there's something you're always going to learn from struggling a bit and from trying something new. And by God, you know, owning your own company and doing this stuff from scratch is a learning curve, you know. And we're not business people. You know, the three of us that run the studio are ex-devs, so we're not business savvy, and we had to learn a lot of that stuff. And fortunately, we've been able to hire a lot of great folks to help us out with that. But yeah, I think it was the, you know, I've done this and I can continue doing this, but I really like to try something new.
Yeah, and now you feel like it's paying off. It's been fun here and there, but now you feel like it's really coming together.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, right on. So what do you see as Armature's role in the industry moving forward? Do you want to keep creating new IP? Do you want to be known as the ReCore guys going forward?
Well, we'd be fortunate if we were known as the ReCore guys. That would be great. I really do like the property. I do like the relationships, and I like what we've built. And I think, you know, what is in the game we have right now is like 1/10 of the ideas that we had for this world and the characters and everything. So I think there's a lot of meat there to explore. So I think that would be great if that happened, but that's all up to if people like it, you know. But I think that we would like to continue on, you know, doing original things. I mean, I think that that's what we started the company for. And, you know, this is really, truly the first original IP that I've been involved in, like from scratch. You know, Metroid obviously was a reimagining to some degree, and every other game has been kind of like a reimagining of something else. But this is I like this feeling. Like we did a game earlier in the year called Dead Star, which was original game, and that was a new IP. And there's a lot. Every time we make one, we learn a lot about other mistakes. You know, we make mistakes and we try to improve those. But it's really a great feeling to that are different. If it's you know, hopefully people view it as a good game and we feel it's good. That it sounds silly, but you've contributed, right? You know, it's like we've contributed to the game industry, and we want to continue making new things. And I would love to continue doing that. You know?
I'd imagine you feel like you're in line with Inafune-san too, as well. Just being chained by Mega Man for so long, and now for him to finally be like, "All right, I just need to make new stuff." I feel like you guys must be kindred spirits over there.
Yeah, you know, it's the good thing is that I like making these types of games. So it's not like it's a punishment that we're getting. You know, well, the big thing that we learned about having a new company was risk. Is that companies don't want to take risks. They want to know, you've done this type of game before, please make another type of game like that before and make it as successful. That would be great. And that would be great if that happened. And a lot of times you see that developers do make similar types of games because, they might have a particular expertise. And but you always have ideas that completely don't fit that. And I remember in the early days, we would talk about these games like kids games that we felt were really cool and unique, and we would get told when we would pitch these things like, don't you guys make action games? Like that's what you get. It's like the only time it seems like, and sometimes that's the way it goes, is that in order to break out and do sort of a new genre or a new really type of game, you have to kind of self-fund that and really prove to people that you can do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's what you see is like publishers are adverse to risk if it's so outside of what their perceived comfort zone for your skill set as a company is. So I don't feel, it's like I could see how we're maybe pigeonholed into that sort of type of genre of game, which I'm completely fine with because I really enjoy it. But we have a lot of ideas for other types of things. So hopefully we can continue experimenting with that stuff.
Some with zero Metroid elements in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Dead Star was the same thing. Like Dead Star was, but it's still an action game, but it's a very different. But yeah, I think that I would love to kind of move on to something like that.
Right on. Well, hey, I'm looking forward to ReCore, man. When's that game coming out?
September 13th. So a few weeks away. We're excited. September 16th, I believe, in Europe. So
nice.
Yeah, it's we're down to the wire now here, and we're super excited. We can't wait for people to check it out.
And now you're in the bracing for impact for the media blast and the tweets coming at you.
That's just I'm old, so no. Yeah, I think that I'm. It's always I went to school for industrial design, and the thing you always never wanted was to make a presentation, and you always had to you had to come up with a design for something, and then you had to make it in 3D. And back when I went to school in the early 90s, you had to paint it and work on it in a wood shop, so it might be like a ceramic heater or something like that. And you never wanted to show up the day of the presentation with a dripping wet painted model you just finished 20 minutes before, right? And so it's really hard to stand up really proud in front of everybody and propose this, because sometimes people won't take you seriously. But I feel that ReCore we're very proud of it, and we feel that it is not a dripping wet model. It is a solid game that we're proud of and that we're excited to show to everyone.
Right on. Well, congrats on shipping it up and locking it down there.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and thank you for your time, and thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday, and we'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.